Chapter 1461. Buddha's Fury Vajrabodhi, Demon Rinsing Bodhi Bead. Dijun activated the Buddha's Fury Vajrabodhi again. This time, he didn't hold back and activated the Buddha's divine power to the extreme. The entire treasure refining hall was shrouded in his terrifying and sacred divine power. Then, he threw out the Buddha Bi-Dao artifact, a wave of Buddha's light that seemed to be able to wipe out all demons and evils. The Buddha's divine power is indeed amazing. However, I am an elder of the Great Star Hall. Why would I be afraid of you? Lucky Star Protection, Killing, Star Destruction. Jixing, Immortal Lord, didn't dare to hold back. He shouted coldly and quickly formed a seal to activate his divine power. Xian Guang shot out from the top of Jixing, Immortal Lord's head and condensed into a light ball that was about 10 feet in size. It emitted a peaceful aura and covered his entire body. With the protection of the heavenly Tao, Dijun's Buddha's divine power couldn't affect him. Whoosh! Whoosh! At the same time, Jixing, Immortal Lord, activated the Tao artifact that was shaped like a bead. It emitted a dazzling light that condensed into a starry sword chi. It emitted a terrifying divine power that could tear the space apart and attack Dijun. Boom! The two peerless immortal venerables clashed against each other in the treasure refining palace, causing a series of explosions. Jixing, Immortal Lord, was obviously no match for Dijun. He was suppressed by Dijun. However, it was impossible for Dijun Master to kill Jixing, Immortal Venerable, in a short period of time. Just as the two immortal lords were in a stalemate, an expert of the Great Star Hall sneaked to the back and pounced on the divine artifact that was sitting cross-legged on the ground. When Gong Yu saw this, the corners of his lips curled up, revealing a cold and mocking smile. "How dare you?" Dijun shouted angrily and used all his strength to activate the demon rinsing Bodhi bead to push Jixing, Immortal Lord, back. Then, he turned around and attacked the expert of the Great Star Hall. However, it was too late. The expert of the Great Star Hall formed a seal and formed a Xian Guang to envelop the divine artifact. Then, he tried to grab the divine artifact. However, the divine artifact didn't move an inch on the ground. The expert of the Great Star Hall was shocked and suddenly increased his true chi to try to grab the divine artifact. Boom! All of a sudden, a powerful suction force burst out from the divine artifact, catching the Grand Star Hall expert off guard. Even if he was on guard, he couldn't escape from this terrifying force. His body lost control of his body and slammed into the divine artifact. Sizzle! Blood chi gushed out of the Grand Star Hall expert's 7 orifices and skin before being devoured by the divine weapon. The man's body quickly shriveled like a rubber ball that had been sucked dry. In less than 3 breaths, he had turned into a pile of ashes that drifted to the ground. His Taoist robe also fell to the ground. Such a terrifying scene caused Reverend Dijun, who was rushing over, to stop abruptly. His face was filled with shock. Jixing, Immortal Venerable, and Yun Xiao were also surprised and shocked. This heaven-defying artifact can actually absorb a cultivator's blood essence. Su Feng, who was hiding in the Wuling Goblin, was also shocked when he saw this scene. Glancing at the red Taoist robe in front of the divine artifact, Su Feng suddenly realized that the last palace master of the boundless secular palace had tried to fuse with the divine artifact after killing Emperor Tianbao in a sneak attack. In the end, his blood essence was sucked dry by the divine artifact, and he died here in a daze. What a terrifying divine artifact! Jixing, Immortal Venerable, and Reverend Dijun stopped fighting and looked at the divine artifact with helpless smiles. After fighting for so long, this was the result. They could only stare at the heaven-defying divine artifact, but couldn't take it. What was the point of continuing to fight? Jixing, Immortal Venerable, since the Great Star Hall is determined to get the divine artifact, I'll give you face and let you take the divine artifact first. Reverend Truth had a humble and courteous look on his face. Just like the monk Shangda, this Buddhist cultivator also had a very thick skin. I'm going to give it a try. Otherwise, how can I be satisfied? Jixing, Immortal Venerable, chuckled and didn't hold back. When he was 10 feet away from the divine artifact, Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, activated his divine ability and used Ji Xing to protect himself. Then, he carefully shot out a ray of starlight to envelop the divine artifact. "Rise for me," Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, shouted coldly, and the Xian Guang suddenly shrank. However, what happened next was exactly the same as what happened to the Great Star Hall's expert. Not only did the divine artifact not move, but it also burst out with a force of attraction and attracted Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable. Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, was able to control his momentum at first, but after a while, his momentum shattered layer by layer. Puff, seeing that he was about to end up like the Great Star Hall expert, Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood essence. The blood essence was absorbed by the divine artifact, and the force of attraction weakened a little. In the next moment, the Tao artifact divine light that enveloped Ji Xing, the Immortal Venerable, exploded with a rumble, shaking Ji Xing, the Immortal Venerable, away. Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable's aura suddenly became sluggish. Even the bead had some cracks on it. "Master Dijun, the Great Star Hall will give up on this heaven-defying divine artifact. It's yours now." Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, regained his smile. "If that's the case, then I'll give it a try." Dijun stepped forward with a solemn look on his face. "Go, demon rinsing Bodhi bead." Master Dijun directly shot out the Buddhist bead, which emitted a ray of golden light and Buddhist chi that condensed into a light shield that enveloped the divine artifact. "Withdraw." Master Dijun formed a seal to activate the Buddhist artifact. The golden light and Buddhist chi shrank and pulled the divine artifact. Master Dijun's face was filled with ecstasy. However, in the next second, a mysterious and incomparably powerful aura burst out from the top of the divine artifact. The light shield formed by the golden light and Buddhist chi instantly shattered. Not only that, but the aura of the divine artifact also hit the demon rinsing Bodhi bead. With a cracking sound, the Buddhist bead broke into two halves and fell to the ground, completely destroyed. Master Dijun's primordial spirit was also impacted by the aura. His body trembled, and his face turned paler than a sheet of paper. For a moment, he could barely stand. The two peerless Immortal Venerables failed one after another. Not only did they suffer serious injuries, but they also lost their Tao artifacts. Both of them were furious and heartbroken. However, they still refused to give up. They stayed in the hall and kept trying all kinds of methods. Naturally, they returned empty-handed. About a month later, "The Great Star Hall has no fate with the divine artifact. Let's go." Ji Xing decisively took Yun Xiao and the injured expert to the Great Star Hall and left the treasure refining hall through a spatial array. How could Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, give up so easily? He obviously wants to go back to the Great Star Hall to find help. Humph, there are many experts in the Great Star Hall. It's not like I don't have any friends. As long as I can get the divine artifact, I'll just give them some benefits. Master Dijun also decided to leave the treasure refining hall immediately. Gong Yu suddenly said, "Why don't I stay here and wait for you, Senior? It's better to prevent the Great Star Hall from returning." Master Dijun's deep eyes flashed with a sharp light. Then, he smiled faintly and said, "That's good. You wait here for my return." Whoosh, Master Dijun passed through the array and left. Gong Yu suddenly formed a series of hand seals and sent out Xian Guang to seal the spatial array in the corner of the hall. Since it's called a heaven-defying divine artifact, how can it be taken by ordinary means? How can the heaven-defying treasure of the boundless secular palace fall into the hands of others? The divine artifact will be mine. No one can take it away from me. Ha ha! Gong Yu laughed loudly. His complacent laughter echoed in the hall. Su Fong raised his eyebrows and said to himself, "This Gong Yu is not simple. He must have hidden many secrets of the boundless secular palace. Maybe he can take away the divine artifact." Gong Yu came to the red robe in front of the divine artifact and knelt on the ground. "Ancestor of the boundless secular palace, Junior Gong Yu greets the ancestor. When you merged with the divine artifact, you suffered a backlash and your body was destroyed. The young immortal took the opportunity to escape with his supreme magic. After leaving the boundless secular palace, he was reborn and rebuilt the divine palace family, so that the bloodline of the boundless secular palace could continue. Later, you used all kinds of methods to try to take the divine artifact, but failed. It was not until you were about to die that you came up with a way to merge with the divine artifact. This secret was passed down from generation to generation by the palace master of the divine palace family. Today, everything is finally ready. I have come to collect the heaven-defying divine artifact. Please protect me, ancestor. Su Fong, who was inside the Wuling Goblin, heard Gong Yu's muttering. He could not help but be shocked. He did not expect such a secret to be hidden. Gong Yu stood up and showed a domineering aura. When I collect the divine artifact and merge with it, I will rebuild the boundless secular palace. I will walk out of this immortal realm and dominate the macro world sooner or later. At that time, not only Master Dijun, but also the Tianming Hao Tsang sect and the Hongxing Hall Chamber Commerce will be trampled under my feet. At this moment, Gong Yu's ambition and domineering aura shocked Su Fong. Gong Yu walked to the back of the divine artifact and smiled proudly. When the divine artifact was refined, the ancestor of the boundless secular palace secretly integrated a large amount of blood essence into it. If you want to collect the divine artifact, you must have the original aura of the boundless secular palace and the power of a deity. Only then can you collect and merge with it. Master Dijun and Venerable Lucky Star, these two idiots, with the power of your macro world, you want to merge with the heaven-defying divine artifact? Gong Yu formed an astonishing hand seal, and a layer of divine radiance quickly appeared on his right arm, filled with the mysterious power of the greater world. It was as if this arm no longer belonged to him, but was instead the hand of a deity that came from the myriad worlds. After countless generations of hard work, the Shungong family collected the divine artifacts of the macro world and finally refined this divine arm with the power of a deity. It merged with my body, so I have the ability to merge with and control the heaven-defying divine artifact. After spending so much effort, who else but me could be the master of the divine artifact? Gong Yu burst into laughter again. Puff! A stream of blood essence spurted out from Gong Yu's mouth and fell on the divine artifact. It was quickly absorbed by the divine artifact. Then, Gong Yu's right arm suddenly burst with a sacred and mysterious divine brilliance. His right palm pressed on the top of the divine artifact's head. Crack! 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 Inside the divine artifact's body, there was the sound of bones and flesh expanding and blood rushing. After a dozen breaths, an incomparably majestic aura of life burst out from the divine artifact. Oh no, the divine artifact is about to be awakened by Gong Yu. Su Fong could no longer hold back. She let the Wuling Goblin slide down from the stone pillar to the ground. After transforming into a demon body, she spat out Su Fong from her mouth. Su Fong. Gong Yu was alarmed by the movement behind him. When he saw that it was Su Fong, he was shocked and surprised. Then, Gong Yu laughed wildly. You come at the right time. Not only will this heaven-defying divine artifact belong to me, Gong Yu, but your Taoist artifacts and everything else will also belong to me. Download address, mobile reading, bibliographic review. Chapter 1462. Divine Power. I need divine power. A muffled voice came out of the human-shaped divine artifact's mouth, as if it had not woken up yet. Boom! Boom! The divine light on Gong Yu's right palm suddenly became much brighter as he poured all the divine power in his right arm into the divine artifact. An unparalleled divine power burst out from the divine artifact. The treasure refining hall shook violently. Cracks appeared all over the hall, and the surrounding space array also shattered layer by layer. Under this divine power, Su Fong could not get close. He was forced to retreat and almost vomited blood. The next moment, the human-shaped divine artifact's eyes suddenly opened, shooting out a beam of divine light. Chi! 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 Wherever the divine artifact's light reached, The space collapsed layer by layer. The method my ancestor told me works. Gong Yu was overjoyed to see the divine artifact in his hand. Su Fong, I admit that you are a peerless genius, but so what? No matter how heaven-defying your talent is, you are just a lowly cultivator from a small world. I, Gong Yu, am a descendant of the boundless secular palace. My status is noble. You are no match for me. Now, I will give you a chance. Submit to me and become my slave. When I reach the peak of the macro world, you will also receive supreme glory. Otherwise, not only will I take your Tao artifact, but I will also strip your memories. All your secrets will be mine. Gong Yu was so proud that he laughed loudly again. He actually wanted to make Su Fong submit to him. Even if you get the divine artifact, with your strength, can you control it? Su Fong sneered. The origin sacred mirror quietly appeared in his right palm. At this point, he could only use the mirror to see if he could suppress the divine artifact. No matter how heaven-defying Emperor Tianbao's refining skills were, and no matter how powerful his divine artifact was, it could not be better than the mirror. However, Su Fong was worried that the power he could use the origin sacred mirror was limited. Could he keep the divine artifact in the mirror space? Boom! A powerful aura burst out from the body of the divine artifact. It was as if a peerless monster had awakened. The divine might that it released formed an astonishing shackle. Su Fong almost stopped breathing and found it difficult to even move a finger. The artifact's spirit has been awakened. The divine artifact is finally born. Gong Yu's eyes flickered with a hearty light. He was so excited that his whole body started to tremble. Qi! A mysterious purple gas emanated from the divine artifact and condensed into a purple cloud above its head. This is the great pregnant violet energy produced by the impending birth of a divine item. Su Fong's eyes suddenly burned with excitement, and he withdrew the origin sacred mirror in his hand. Great pregnant purple qi. Before magic treasure was successfully refined, there was a kind of omen that appeared. It was an extremely mysterious power between heaven and earth. The great pregnant purple qi that Su Fong absorbed in the past was like wisps of smoke, invisible to the naked eye. Meanwhile, this heaven-defying divine artifact was infused with divine force by Gong Yu, causing the artifact's spirit to awaken. This also meant that the divine artifact had matured, giving birth to great fertility violet energy. It was actually this shocking. Not only the quantity, but the quality was even more shocking. Before the birth of a magic treasure in a macro world, it was impossible to produce such great pregnant purple qi. After absorbing this great pregnant purple qi, my purple qi dharma spirit will not only recover, but also become flawless. Even if I can't get the divine artifact, I've achieved my goal of coming to the boundless secular palace. Moreover, I've unexpectedly obtained the coiled dragon wood. Su Fong immediately urged the purple qi dharma spirit. Sensing the shocking great pregnant purple qi, the purple qi dharma spirit became very active. First, it wriggled in his body, then it started to tremble violently. Hiss! Hiss! The great pregnant purple qi above the divine artifact was peeled off bit by bit and rushed towards Su Fong, who was more than 300 feet away. It then entered his body and was wantonly devoured by the purple qi dharma spirit. The purple qi dharma spirit roared madly in his body as if it had devoured a great tonic. Due to devouring the power of the 9 serenity's demonic god nail, the purple qi dharma spirit became dispirited and listless. Many parts that merged with his flesh and meridians even withered. After devouring the great pregnant purple qi, the withered parts became active again and crazily extended to every corner of his body, further integrating with his flesh. What is he trying to do? Gong Yu, who originally thought that victory was in his grasp, was surprised to see Su Fong devouring the purple qi dharma spirit. Is he trying to seize the divine artifact? Thinking of Su Fong's various incredible divine powers, Gong Yu couldn't help but feel nervous. Looking at the divine artifact again, it was obvious that it would be difficult to successfully produce it in a short time. The most important thing was that it lacked divine power. Gritting his teeth, Gong Yu took out a divine essence pill and swallowed it. The Divine Palace family had a very deep heritage, so naturally, there were many divine essence pills passed down from generation to generation. With Gong Yu's current cultivation realm, it was originally impossible for him to refine the medicinal power of the divine essence pill in a short time. However, the Divine Palace's cultivation techniques were inherited from the boundless secular palace, which had some connections with the heavens and realms, and cultivated supreme cultivation techniques. Under the state of Gong Yu's full power, he quickly refined the divine essence pill and turned it into traces of divine power, which continuously replenished his divine arm. The aura of the artifact's explosion suddenly became a bit stronger equals in _R. Gong Yu couldn't help but be overjoyed. However, in the next moment, his eyes revealed a look of horror. Why was this? It turned out that the divine essence pill was just the most common pill in the heavens and realms. The divine power contained in a divine essence pill was very limited, so it was quickly devoured by the divine artifact. In desperation, Gong Yu could only grit his teeth and continue to devour the divine essence pill to awaken the artifact's spirit of the divine artifact completely. In this way, Gong Yu became a crucible transformation cultivator who refined the divine essence pill and constantly replenished the divine power consumed by the divine artifact. Gong Yu's cultivation was only at the first path of Saint Immortal Realm. No matter how magical the Divine Palace's cultivation technique was, such a huge burden was far beyond the range of what he could bear. He was in an extremely dangerous state. However, he continued to devour the divine essence pill as if he had gone mad. He would not stop until he obtained the divine artifact. In stark contrast to Gong Yu, Su Fong was in an extremely strange state. After devouring all the great pregnant purple gas, the purple gas Dharma spirit fell silent for a moment. Then it suddenly exploded in his body. Purple gas Dharma spirits were running in every corner of his body. The purple gas Dharma spirit underwent another great transformation and merged perfectly with his physical body. It felt like blood was dissolved in water. A perfect purple gas Dharma spirit. Su Fong's eyes flickered. What did it mean to have a perfect purple gas Dharma spirit? At this moment, Su Fong felt that the speed of his fusion with the underworld reincarnation sword, Xianming Thunder Archive, and other Dao artifacts had increased imperceptibly and reached a new height. With a perfect purple gas Dharma spirit, activating any magic treasure, including the Xianming Thunder Archive, would not consume too much genuine qi or life aura. With the help of the purple gas Dharma spirit's ability to control magic treasures, Su Fong, with his cultivation base at the fourth path of Saint Immortal Realm, could not only fully activate the power of a peak supreme Dao artifact, but also the underworld reincarnation sword and the immortal slaying bow, which were at the same level as the 10 great Dao artifacts. As for the Xianming Thunder Archive, a supreme Dao artifact that was infinitely close to a divine artifact, Su Fong was confident that if he fully activated it, he could also fully activate its power. However, he could only fully activate it once. Activating it again would consume a great deal of genuine qi. However, even activating it once was quite an impressive feat. It should be known that the Emperor of Netherworld Strengthback then could only reach this level if he fully exerted his strength. Su Fong wasn't sure how much of the primeval sacred mirror's power he could activate. This supreme divine tool was too overbearing. Even if the purple cloud lost spirit became perfect, Su Fong wasn't sure how much of its power he could activate. Law, who was in the blood prison, also sighed, "Amazing, Su Fong, you are really amazing. With the purple gas Dharma spirit, you are finally qualified to step onto the stage of the top experts of the macro world, and no longer limited to this immortal domain. Law, don't worry. After I settle the matters of this immortal domain, I will go to the Heaven's Mandate Hao Tsang sect and retrieve the blood jade for you. It's good that you have this intention. For the time being, it's better not to encounter the Heaven's Mandate Hao Tsang sect. It's not just one or two immortal venerables, but the most powerful force of the macro world. Not only does the sect have a lot of immortal venerables, but it also has a demigod expert with 1 foot in the true god realm. Even if you have a perfect purple gas dharma spirit and a supreme divine artifact like the Origin's sacred mirror, it will be difficult for you to contend with the Heaven's Mandate Hao Tsang sect. Difficult to contend with the Heaven's Mandate Hao Tsang sect? Law, you've probably forgotten that the purple gas dharma spirit not only gives me the powerful ability to control magic treasures and bestows me with supreme fortune, but it can also devour the artifact spirits of magic treasures. When combined with the life-shrinking technique, it can even devour the fortune of a sect. If I devour the fortune of the Heaven's Mandate Hao Tsang sect and cause its fortune to decline, will I have the strength to contend with them? Devour the fortune of the Heaven's Mandate Hao Tsang sect. Luo was also shocked by Su Fang's boldness and ambition and took a breath of cold air. An empire or a sect maintained its glory and strength, and its foundation was fortune. Without fortune, no matter how powerful an empire was, it would collapse overnight. By the same logic, no matter how powerful a sect was, if it lost its fortune, it would eventually walk the path of destruction. Su Fang continued, "It's not just the Heaven's Mandate Hao Tsang sect. When my cultivation reaches the immortal venerable level, or even higher, I will devour the fortune of the entire demon race and completely eradicate the immortal Tao." This time, Law was completely shocked. Su Fang sensed the origin spirit of the purple gas dharma spirit. It was now in a state of slow awakening. It should not take long for it to completely awaken. With the help of the origin spirit, the ability of the purple gas dharma spirit to Su Fang would increase by a lot. Let's solve the matter of the divine artifact first. Su Fang looked at Gong Yu. Emperor Tian Bao had been unable to complete 2 major regrets when he was alive. At this time, the perfect purple gas dharma spirit had been completed by Su Fang. As for this divine artifact, it was another regrettable matter. Even if Su Fang could not get the human-shaped divine artifact himself, it must not fall into the hands of Gong Yu. He was the descendant of the murderer of Emperor Tian Bao. If the divine artifact was obtained by him, Emperor Tian Bao would not be able to die in peace. Just as he was about to make a move, Gong Yu's body shook. His whole person seemed to be squeezed dry, and his aura suddenly withered to the extreme. It turned out that he had been constantly devouring and refining the divine essence pill, and had long exceeded the limit of what he could bear. At this time, he was already at the end of his rope. Divine power. I need divine power. The voice of the divine artifact was full of strong desire. Without the supply of divine power, the divine artifact did not stop. Instead, it wantonly devoured the power and life aura of Gong Yu's right arm. Puff! In an instant, Gong Yu's right arm was like a withered tree, shrinking rapidly and finally breaking apart. The divine artifact still refused to give up and continued to devour Gong Yu's life aura. "No, I am your master. How can you devour your master? Stop, quickly stop." Gong Yu was scared out of his wits and shouted in despair. The divine artifact seemed to understand his words and stopped devouring. It burst out a burst of divine power and sent Gong Yu flying. "You are not qualified to be my master," the human-shaped divine artifact said slowly, and then looked at Su Fang. == download address. Mobile reading, bibliographic review. Chapter 1463. The Divine Artifact Transaction. Su Fang, let's see how you escape this calamity. Even if you have heaven-defying divine abilities, can you really fight against a heaven-defying divine artifact? When Gong Yu saw the human-shaped divine artifact turn its attention to Su Fang, he couldn't help but laugh savagely. The human-shaped divine artifact slowly rose from the ground, like a god descending upon a greater world. It wasn't very tall, but it seemed capable of piercing through the heavens. In that moment, Su Fang felt a deadly sense of danger. Law quickly reminded him, "This heaven-defying divine artifact hasn't fully awakened, and in a greater world, its power is limited. It's not something that should appear in a greater world, so it can't unleash its full power. Other divine abilities won't be of much use to it, but the power of the world of yin and yang and the violet energy magical spirit. The power of the world of yin and yang and the violet energy magical spirit. Su Fong stared blankly for a moment, then understood. What was divine power? Divine power was a kind of great Tao power that could transform an immortal into a god after reaching a certain level of comprehension and control. Su Fong's heaven and earth Tao palace was something that only the gods of the myriad worlds could possess. Furthermore, as the world sprouted, his own world had a certain embryonic form, and the world power it released was no longer the power of a greater world, but the power of a god. Su Fong's heaven and earth Tao palace was the most mysterious of the myriad great Taos. Therefore, the power of his world of yin and yang was also an extraordinary and special power. However, it was equivalent to a true god, and Su Fong's divine power was still very weak. Just like how the true energy of a lesser world couldn't contend with the power of an immortal from a greater world, the power of an immortal from a greater world couldn't contend with the power of a god. Only a similar level of power was qualified to contend with it. The violet energy magical spirit could control magical treasures and even devour their artifact spirits. Even if it couldn't control or devour the human-shaped divine artifact, it would have a powerful suppressive effect. Although the human-shaped divine artifact was similar to a god, it was still a divine artifact refined by Emperor Celestial. For Su Fong, who had a perfect violet energy magical spirit, it was a fatal weakness. In the great world, how many people are qualified to fight against the deity? There was no trace of fear on Su Fong's face. Instead, there was a strong will to fight. Gong Yu sneered disdainfully. In his opinion, Su Fong was simply overestimating himself by trying to fight against a godlike artifact. Qi, looking at Su Fong, the eyes of the divine artifact once again emitted a terrifying light that could shatter the void. You want to suppress my Su Fong with just your gaze? Su Fong shouted coldly and activated the world seed. The power of the yin-yang world burst out and condensed into a powerful defensive aura around him. At the same time, he pushed the purple Qi Dharma spirit to the extreme. Mysterious purple Qi circled around his body, releasing a terrifying divine might that could make any Dharma treasure submit to it. Boom! Boom! Su Fong's aura shattered layer by layer, but it did not completely collapse. Instead, the light of the divine artifact's pupil was worn away. The divine might of the purple Qi Dharma spirit also made the human-shaped divine artifact tremble. It was on the verge of collapse. Deity, you have the power of a deity. What is that Dharma treasure in your body? It is so familiar. It seems to be of the same origin as me. Its aura can affect me involuntarily. I even feel like I am being suppressed and swallowed by it, stimulated by the divine might of the purple Qi Dharma spirit. The divine artifact's consciousness became clearer. Although its voice was still intermittent, it could clearly express its meaning. It was full of fear and panic. Gong Yu, who was standing at the side, was shocked. Su Fong shouted at the human-shaped divine artifact, "Submit to me. I will help you completely awaken and become a true divine artifact." Submit to you? In this world, no human is qualified to be my master. Although you have the power of a deity and that Dharma treasure can suppress me, you are not qualified to make me submit to you. In the cold voice of the human-shaped divine artifact, there was a supreme arrogance. Moreover, I am not a divine artifact. I am a deity. After swallowing you, my consciousness and physical abilities will be completely awakened. I will become a true deity and will no longer be a lifeless Dharma treasure. The human-shaped divine artifact suddenly took a step forward. In a flash, it arrived in front of Su Fong and directly punched out. Because it was too fast, it caused ripples in the space. It was even difficult for people to catch sight of its figure. So fast. Fortunately, Su Fong's physical body had reached the great perfection realm. It gave him a reaction speed that was far beyond that of ordinary cultivators. The ability of the dragon subduing true body was immediately activated. Before the human-shaped divine artifact could kill him, he quickly turned into a dragon man. In fact, the power of his giant diamond body was even stronger than the dragon subduing true body. The reason why he did not use it now was that on one hand, there was not enough time. On the other hand, using the giant diamond body would consume a large amount of yang qi. The Origin Sacred Mirror was his greatest trump card. Activating the mirror required yang qi. Therefore, Su Fang had to maintain his yang qi at the peak state. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to contend against this terrifying divine artifact. Boom! After an earth-shattering collision, Su Fang's fist and right arm were shattered by a huge and powerful force. His body was violently sent flying hundreds of feet away. He crashed into a stone pillar that supported the treasure refining hall. The hall shook violently, almost collapsing, and the stone pillars were also forcefully broken. Countless bones in Su Fang's body were shattered. His meridians and internal organs were also severely injured. You don't know the meaning of death. Gong Yu was very pleased. Unexpectedly, in the next moment, the sound of blood flowing within Su Fang's body rang out, and then he leaped up from the ground and stood there proudly. Exuberant vitality surged all over his body, and he had a domineering aura that stood proudly in the heavens and the earth. Besides his slightly pale face, he didn't look like he was heavily injured at all. Gong Yu's eyes were filled with disbelief. Even the emotionless human-shaped divine artifact's eyes were shining with a shocking light. Since you are not willing to submit to me and want to devour me, I cannot let you live. Su Fang flipped his right hand, and the Origin Sacred Mirror appeared in his hand. He raised the mirror and pointed it at the divine artifact. Sensing the aura of the mirror, the human-shaped divine artifact revealed the same shocked and terrified expression as a human. Its voice also trembled. Impossible. In this world, how can there be a divine artifact stronger than me? Divine artifact? Su Fang actually has a divine artifact. It's of a higher level than the human-shaped divine artifact. Gong Yu is completely dumbfounded. The human-shaped divine artifact said coldly, "You can't even contend against me. How can you activate a divine artifact that is stronger than me?" Before it even finished speaking, Su Fang sent a ray of 9 suns' power into the mirror. In an instant, a red light shot out from the mirror and landed on the human-shaped divine artifact. Then, it quickly burned in a 9 yang true fire. The purple qi lost spirit became perfect. Su Fang's power of activating the divine artifact increased by a lot. Moreover, it became much easier for him to use it. You can actually activate a divine artifact. The human-shaped divine artifact cried out in pain under the divine power of the mirror. It constantly struggled and resisted. However, no matter how heaven-defying it was, how could it resist the divine power of the Origin Sacred Mirror? Under the refining power of the 9 yang true fire, mysterious marks appeared on its body. They were not immortal marks, but divine marks of the transcending immortal mark. Among those divine marks, the qi and blood that Gong Yu had fused with were immediately incinerated by the 9 yang true fire. Puff! Feeling that the connection with the human-shaped divine artifact had been severed, Gong Yu's primordial spirit consciousness was also damaged. He spat out a mouthful of blood. His originally weak aura fell again, and he was on the verge of death. Su Fang shouted coldly, "You will submit voluntarily, or be refined by my supreme divine artifact. You decide for yourself. I will not submit, and if I submit to you, you will be punished by the heavens. Even if you have this mirror divine artifact, you will not be able to escape the punishment of the will of the heavens." The human-shaped divine artifact's words shocked Su Fang. Law said from the blood jade, "Su Fang, the divine artifact is right. You have to think carefully." This divine artifact had not yet been born, but it had already attracted the attention of the will of the heavens. It wanted to send down heavenly punishment. If he really fused with the divine artifact, it would definitely attract heavenly punishment. At that time, even if he had the supreme providence brought by the purple qi law spirit, the purple qi law spirit had not reached the point where heavenly punishment could not be applied. It would be difficult for the Origin's sacred mirror to resist the power of heavenly punishment. As long as he thought of the scene described by the Yellow Spring Great Emperor, Su Fong shuddered. How can I be willing to give up just like that? Of course, Su Fong was unwilling. Who would be willing to give up such a heaven-defying divine artifact? I can make a deal with you. Under the burning divine power of the mirror, the human-shaped divine artifact's voice quickly became much weaker. You're just a newly born divine artifact. What do you have to make a deal with me? Su Fong could not help but find it a little funny. Although the divine artifact's consciousness had just awakened, its spiritual intelligence was not low. I need your divine power and the blood essence in your body that is full of vitality. Only then can my consciousness and physical ability be completely awakened. The point is, what can I get in return? If I fuse with your blood essence, when you become a true divine being, you can become my master. It will be difficult for me to resist your control. Didn't you just say that after fusing with you, you will bring me heavenly punishment? Furthermore, as soon as you leave this place and come into contact with nature, you will be sensed by the will of the heavenly Tao. Are you saying that you can resist the heavenly punishment? The human-shaped divine artifact said, I was refined by a human and went against the heavenly Tao's reincarnation. The heavenly Tao will destroy me and the person who refined me before I am born. Now that I have been born, it means that my existence is reasonable. The will of the heavenly Tao will also allow my existence and will not send down heavenly punishment. The principle was very simple. For example, cultivator's cultivation was originally an action that went against the will of the heavenly Tao. Because of that, heavenly punishment would be sent down. However, once a cultivator transcended the heavenly punishment, it meant that they had obtained the acknowledgement of the will of the heavenly Tao. However, I can vaguely sense that this world cannot accommodate me. Once my consciousness and abilities are completely awakened, I will immediately leave this world and go to a higher level world. Thus, after you become my master, you will only need to stay here for a period of time and avoid being sensed by the will of the heavenly Tao. Once I leave this world and am no longer by your side, the will of the heavenly Tao will not notice you. Once you become a divine being, you will be able to truly control me, and the will of the heavenly Tao will not send down heavenly punishment. Su Fong laughed involuntarily. I have to give up my precious strength and vitality, but you give me this empty promise. Even if you go to the myriad heavens, do you think I will go there to find you? In a great world, how many people can surpass the peak and walk out of the world's end? Your strength is very weak, but you possess the power that only a divine being can possess. Thus, I can conclude that the cultivation technique you cultivate has a very high possibility of allowing you to become a divine being. Furthermore, I also have a way to increase your chances of becoming a god. =R =R download address. Mobile reading, bibliographic review. Chapter 1464. You're saying, the method Emperor Tianbao used to refine you is his great Tao of refining? Su Fong's eyes suddenly shone with a terrifying light. His heart beat violently. So the human who refined me is called Emperor Tianbao. I'll remember this name. The human-shaped divine artifact said faintly. The great Tao of craftsmanship you're talking about is the great Tao of craftsmanship that Emperor Tianbao entered the great Tao of craftsmanship. He refined and cultivated divine artifacts like humans. Although I don't know, I'm the great Tao of craftsmanship. The great Tao is me. The process of my birth is also the process of great Tao of craftsmanship. I'll tell you everything about me. You can completely comprehend Emperor Tianbao's great Tao of refining from me. Since I can be refined from lifeless materials into a divine being, you can also cultivate the great Tao of refining and become a divine being. The human-shaped divine artifact's cold and emotionless voice was full of temptation to Su Fong. He couldn't help but be tempted. Which immortal didn't want to reach the peak of the macro world, walk out of the macro world, and go to the legendary myriad worlds? Su Fong cultivated the 9 suns, 9 transformations, and cultivated the heaven and earth Tao Palace. He had the qualifications to become a divine being. Moreover, the possibility of that was very high. However, the path of cultivation was extremely difficult. No one could be 100% sure. Even if there was a slim chance, cultivators would use all their strength to fight for it. They would even pay the price with their lives. Emperor Tianbao's great Tao of refining was to cultivate his body as a Tao artifact. He cultivated himself into a divine artifact. The great Tao of refining that Emperor Tianbao comprehended was definitely inferior to the 9 suns, 9 transformations that could cultivate the yin-yang Tao wheel. After all, Emperor Tianbao was a cultivator from the macro world. Moreover, his great Tao of refining was not perfect. He still needed countless generations and countless peerless experts to perfect it. However, the great Tao of refining was very high. It was far superior to any cultivation technique in the macro world. It would be of great help to Su Fong in cultivating the 9 suns, 9 transformations, and cultivating his own world. Even if he could comprehend some useful things from it, it would help Su Fong avoid many detours on the path to the peak of the great Tao. And Su Fong only had to pay a part of his blood essence and the power of the yin-yang world. This deal was not a loss at all. As for ascending to the 10,000 realms and truly controlling a human-shaped divine artifact, Su Fong did not take it seriously. After weighing the pros and cons, Su Fong put away the primordial mirror and said decisively, "I agree to your conditions." That would be great. After being burned by the mirror's divine power, the human-shaped divine artifact's body was covered in traces of melting, but he seemed to be fine. He immediately sat cross-legged on the ground and closed his eyes. Su Fong activated the world seed and unleashed the power of the world of yin and yang to envelop the human-shaped divine artifact. At the same time, he also extracted a part of his blood essence and turned it into a bloody light, continuously injecting it into the human-shaped divine artifact's body. In an instant, the human-shaped divine artifact's life force was more than 10 times more exuberant than before. The flesh, blood, and bones that were refined from various materials became incomparably lively. Divine power also quickly flowed through the meridians that were formed from various imprints. At the same time, Su Fong's blood essence also fused into the divine artifact, allowing him to have a certain degree of flesh and blood connection with the divine artifact. Your blood essence and divine power are very different. It makes me feel very comfortable. My consciousness will soon be completely awakened, and the various abilities hidden in my body will soon be stimulated. After obtaining the majestic power of the world of yin and yang and the power of Su Fong's blood essence, the divine artifact's consciousness gradually awakened completely. Its body was like a silent world, and it began to circulate endlessly. Su Fong also consumed a lot of his life force and the power of the yin-yang world for this. The amount of life force and divine power needed for the human-shaped divine artifact to completely awaken was too terrifying. If it were not for Su Fong's perfect physical body, Black Lotus True Body, Dragon Subduing True Body, and other abilities, as well as the yang qi in his body that gave him an astonishing amount of life force, he would have been sucked dry by the human-shaped divine artifact in a short while. When Gong Yu saw this scene, his confidence was once again dealt a heavy blow. He actually wanted to use the medicinal power of the divine essence pill to awaken the divine artifact. Obviously, he was overestimating himself. He even had a thought in his mind that compared to Su Fong, he was simply a joke. Su Fong's power of the yin-yang world was almost exhausted, and his life force was about to reach the limit that he could bear. At this time, the human-shaped divine artifact suddenly stopped swallowing. After a moment of silence in its body, an astonishing aura burst out and soared into the sky. Under this terrifying aura, the enchantment on the top of the treasure refining hall shattered, and a large hole appeared on the top, revealing the void outside. With the help of Su Fong's powerful power of the yin-yang world and life force, this heaven-defying divine artifact was finally completely awakened. At this time, the human-shaped divine artifact had an aura of nothingness. It looked like an ordinary person, but Su Fong's perfect physical body could sense that its body contained a vast amount of power. Once it burst out, it could even kill peerless immortal venerables like Master Dijun and immortal venerable Ji Xing. Now, it's time for me to fulfill my promise, the human-shaped divine artifact said. The humanoid divine artifact said. Although its voice was still stiff and cold, it was no longer as unclear as before. Su Fong peeled off a strand of yang immortal and entered the divine artifact's divine aperture. The human-shaped divine artifact opened its divine aperture in consciousness, condensing its memories into mental images and allowing Su Fong to decipher all of them. This divine artifact had just been born, but it had formed an original spirit long ago, but it had been in a state of hibernation. The whole process of Emperor Tianbao refining the divine artifact, including how the master of the boundless secular palace killed Emperor Tianbao and tried to fuse with the divine artifact, could be seen in the divine artifact's memories. The great way of refining. After filtering and organizing the divine artifact's memories, Su Fong finally had a clear understanding of Emperor Tianbao's great way of refining. He couldn't help but admire Emperor Tianbao very much, even more than misty, spiritual master who created the ethereal enlightenment. A refiner from a macro world had created a great way. Such a peerless figure had never existed before, and he believed that there would never be another one in the future. Just as Luo said, if Emperor Tianbao could enter the myriad worlds and have enough time to cultivate and correct the great way of refining, he would definitely be able to reach the peak of the myriad worlds. Unfortunately, Emperor Tianbao had created the great way of refining, but he didn't have the lifespan to cultivate it himself. He could only show his peerless talent by refining this divine artifact. It was obviously impossible to comprehend the great way of refining with just the divine artifact's memories. Su Fong peeled off the young immortal and entered the divine artifact's inner world. What a great Emperor Tianbao! He's simply extraordinary. Su Fong didn't expect to see layers of complex divine formations and divine patterns when he entered the divine artifact's inner world. He was so shocked that he couldn't come back to his senses. The divine artifact gave Su Fong the feeling that it was a big world, and it was a world with its own world equals and _R. A large number of formations, divine formations, handprints, divine patterns, and immortal patterns intertwined to form a vast world. With Su Fong's current cultivation level, even with the purple Qi Dharma spirit, it would take at least 100,000 years to master all of it. Moreover, he couldn't comprehend some of the divine formations and divine patterns that contain the power of arcane. Su Fong could only rely on the powerful and sturdy yang immortal and the perception of a perfected great perfection to forcibly memorize such a vast world. Su Fong was immersed in the divine artifact's inner world, forgetting everything in the outside world. He didn't even pay attention to the consumed life force, the power of the yin-yang world, the half-dead Gongyu in the main hall, or Master Dijun and the experts of Grand Star Hall who could return at any time. About 10 years passed like this. On this day, Su Fong suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with incomparable exhaustion, but they flickered with a light that was filled with wisdom. After 10 years of hard work, Su Fong finally managed to forcibly memorize everything within the God artifact. However, if he wanted to completely comprehend it and figure out a complete way of refining, he would need to cultivate step by step like he did with other cultivation methods. Once he mastered the great way of refining weapons of Emperor Tianbao, Su Fong would benefit tremendously. First, Su Fong's refining skills would make a leap. Coupled with the ability of the purple Qi Dharma spirit, it wouldn't take long for him to stand at the peak of the macro world. The biggest benefit was that cultivating the great way of refining weapons would be of unimaginable help to Su Fong's cultivation of the 9 changes of the 9 suns, his comprehension of the heavenly way and natural law, and his own world. Although Su Fong didn't obtain any divine artifacts, he did obtain a profound cultivation method of the Great Path. Coupled with the fact that his purple Qi Dharma spirit had become perfect, and he also obtained the coil dragonwood. This trip to the boundless secular palace could be said to have gained a lot, far more than any of his previous adventures. The human-shaped divine artifact suddenly said, Su Fong, I've completely awakened now, and you've got what you want. I should also leave here and go to a higher world. I hope we can meet again in the future. If you can surpass me at that time, I will truly recognize you as my master and obey your orders. Su Fong nodded and said confidently, I believe that day will come. I'm looking forward to that day. What's your name? At this time, Su Fong no longer regarded it as a magic weapon, but as a deity. I'm a unique treasure of heaven and earth. The human who refined me is called Emperor Tianbao. My name is Tianbao. The eyes of the human-shaped divine artifact flashed with hail and hearty light. Tianbao. In the three realms, a unique treasure, no, a unique deity, Tianbao. Boom, 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 boom. Just as Tianbao was about to leave the boundless secular palace, an earth-shattering noise came from outside the palace, causing the whole palace to shake violently. The immortal realm where the boundless secular palace was located was on the verge of collapse as the barriers and seals were broken one after another. The Grand Star Hall came so quickly. Lucky Star, Immortal Venerable, and Yunxiao brought so many Immortal Venerables with them, including a peerless Immortal Venerable on par with Immortal Frozen Dream. Su Fong used his great perfection ability and combined it with the world origin of the boundless secular world palace. He could clearly see what was happening outside, and his expression changed instantly. =_ our download address. Mobile reading, bibliographic review. Chapter 1465. This time, Ji Xing Immortal Venerable returned with 3 Immortal Venerables. The leader was a bald old man with a hooked nose and sharp eyes, just like a goshawk. Su Fong could tell from his aura that this old man's cultivation was on par with Frozen Dream. Such a peerless figure was at least a Grand Elder in Grand Star Hall. The other 2 Immortal Venerables were at the same level as Ji Xing Immortal Venerable. In a macro world, Immortal Venerables were the supreme beings among immortals. They stood at the pinnacle of the macro world. The fact that the Great Star Hall had sent out 4 of them at once was a testament to how powerful they were. Moreover, Ji Xing Immortal Venerable had brought more than 100 experts with him. 20 of them were in the Saint Immortal realm. With so many experts, they would be a powerful force in any immortal realm, let alone in the desolate immortal realms at the edge of the macro world. Obviously, they were determined to get the divine artifact. When Ji Xing Immortal Venerable and Yun Xiao entered the boundless secular palace, Su Fong had broken the seals and restrictions along the way, allowing them to enter the artifact refining hall. This time, without Su Fong leading the way, the Grand Star Hall party forced their way through with overbearing and powerful divine abilities. They didn't care about the collapse of the immortal realm where the boundless secular palace was located. Clearly, they wanted to get to the artifact refining hall as soon as possible. Boom, boom, boom. The bald old man for Grand Star Hall took one step at a time. All the seals and obstacles in front of him shattered layer by layer under his aura. The boundary of the immortal realm was also crumbling. The shackles of the star abyss were eroding the immortal realm, causing the world origin of the boundless secular palace to flow away. Without the protection of the boundary, the continent quickly turned into a desolate ruin. Su Fong raised his eyebrows. This is going to be troublesome. Don't worry. I'll take care of this for you before we leave. The human-shaped divine artifact, celestial treasure, said coldly and sat cross-legged on the ground again. Su Fong relaxed and looked at Gongyu. It was time to deal with this young Master Divine Palace. After 10 years of recovery, Gongyu had recovered some of his vitality. However, due to the loss of his right arm and chi, any immortal realm immortal could kill him with his current strength. Seeing Su Fong's Immortal Venerable, Gongyu was shocked. Su Fong, I've always been polite to you. Su Fong, without me, you wouldn't have entered the palace without me. Without me, you wouldn't have entered the secular palace. Use why Su Fong you? You? Why? You is translation when you and I? You what? You, translation Fong. Art translation why? You made an agreement with me to come to the boundless secular palace. Did you not intend to kill me? Su Fong said indifferently. Translation, immortal translation, compared translations, immortal, translation. Immortal Lord, however. He had experienced too many dangers and seen too many cruel and merciless cultivators. He had long honed his Tao hard, as cold as iron. Gong Yu was a scheming and ruthless man. He was no weaker than Yin Sun Xin and Huang Lingyao. If he was spared, who knew how much trouble he would cause in the future? Moreover, Gong Yu had witnessed many of Su Fong's secrets in the treasure refining hall, especially the Origin Sacred Mirror. How could Su Fong leave such a threat alive? Gong Yu hurriedly said, "At that time, you were lowly and weak. You had a palace feather in your hand, so it was reasonable for me to kill you." Lowly and weak? You can kill me at will? Su Fong sneered. At this moment, in my eyes, you were just like how you looked at me in the past. You were just like an ant. It is only reasonable that I kill you. Swoosh! Su Fong's body shattered and turned into a yellow spring blood sea. Blood roiled and swallowed Gong Yu. Gong Yu was able to cultivate a divine arm, so the life essence in his body was naturally abundant. It was not inferior to a Saint Immortal's 9 Dao realm expert. It was perfect for him to recover the life essence he had consumed. Sizzle. Gong Yu, one of the 10 great young masters, the patriarch of the Divine Palace clan, had fallen. A Su Fong condensed in the middle of the blood. Then, the blood rolled up Gong Yu's storage ring and sent it to Su Fong. The Divine Palace clan is indeed powerful. It's comparable to the Yellow Spring Great Emperor's inheritance in any of the immortal realms. Su Fong saw hundreds of spirit veins in Gong Yu's storage ring, as well as countless Dao weapons, pills, and spiritual items. Among them were more than 30 divine essence pills. This was an unexpected gain. Su Fong was overjoyed. He devoured Gong Yu's body, divine essence pills, and spiritual items to quickly replenish the energy consumed to awaken the heavenly treasure. 3 days later, swoosh, swoosh, many experts of the Great Star Hall came to the treasure refining hall. A divine artifact, Su Fong. At this time, the spatial array of the treasure refining hall had been shattered by the aura of the divine artifact's birth. The scene inside the hall could be seen from outside. The bald old man's eyes suddenly lit up when he saw the heavenly treasure. He was pleasantly surprised. Ji Xing's celestial venerable and Yun Xiao, on the other hand, focused their attention on Su Fong. They were surprised for a moment before they were overjoyed as though they had accidentally caught a fat sheep. Yin Xiao pointed at Su Fong and said to the bald old man, "Grandpa, this person is Su Fong." Su Fong? The Su Fong who dares to go against the Great Star Hall. The bald old man shifted his gaze from the divine artifact to Su Fong. Then he smiled disdainfully and said, "He's a little extraordinary, but he's still just an ant. Is he worthy of my attention?" Yin Xiao said, "Grandpa, not only do I want all of his Dao artifacts, but I'll also destroy his Dao path and hand him over to me." The bald old man showed a doting look and smiled. "I'll do as you say." Yin Xiao chuckled and looked at Su Fong like a cat playing with a mouse. "Capture this person. I want him alive." The bald old man's majestic voice was in _1. Whoosh! An immortal venerable expert stepped out and came to the treasure refining hall. He formed a seal and cast out a Xianguang, trying to shackle Su Fong. "This heaven-defying divine artifact is mine." As for the bald old man, he went straight for the divine artifact, intending to take it away. Chi! A figure suddenly appeared in front of Su Fong. It was an immortal fiend monster. The immortal fiend monster spread its hands and cast out the yin-yang immortal fiend scissors, shattering the shackles of the immortal venerable expert of the Great Star Hall. The immortal venerable expert of the Great Star Hall did not expect that Su Fong, who was as weak as a chicken in his eyes, would have such a peerless expert by his side. He was caught off guard and quickly retreated into the void. However, it was too late. Crack! The space was torn apart, and the immortal venerable of the Great Star Hall who had just escaped into the void rolled out again. His right leg was cut off by the yin-yang immortal fiend scissors from below the knee. He let out a shrill cry and fell to the ground. Almost at the same time, The bald old man came to the divine artifact. The divine artifact opened its eyes and shot out a light that could tear the void and hit the bald old man's chest. Puff! The bald old man was indeed a big shot of the Great Star Hall. A fist-sized hole appeared in his chest. His body swayed and blood spurted out of his mouth. However, his body was pushed back by the force of the impact at lightning speed. Whoosh! 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 At the same time, the bald old man sent out 5 cultivators who looked exactly like him. The 5 clones were only slightly weaker than the bald old man. However, they were all at the same height as Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable. They charged at the divine artifact without fear of death. It turned out that the bald old man had cultivated the extremely rare Great Tao of Clones. However, the strength of the divine artifact was far beyond everyone's imagination. Although it was restricted in the macro world and could only exert about 70 to 80% of its strength, it was still not something an immortal venerable like the bald old man could contend with. A peak immortal venerable expert might stand a chance. Whoosh! The divine artifact jumped out from the ground. Its speed was so fast that the space it passed by was distorted. Boom! 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 The divine artifact did not use any divine ability. Instead, it threw out punch after punch. One punch shattered one of the bald old man's clones. After 5 punches, all 5 of the bald old man's clones were killed by the divine artifact. The domineering aura was born spontaneously. After the divine artifact's consciousness and ability were fully awakened, its strength was terrifying. With the help of his clones, the bald old man delayed the divine artifact's attack and took the opportunity to escape from the hall. However, with all 5 of his clones destroyed, not only was his strength greatly reduced, but his primordial spirit and life force were also severely injured. After spitting out a few mouthfuls of blood, the bald old man's chi was weakened. What a heaven-defying divine artifact! It has been fully awakened. The bald old man's eyes were filled with shock, horror, and disbelief. The divine artifact attacked again. The bald old man was shocked and did not dare to fight against this terrifying divine artifact. He turned around and escaped into the void. The divine artifact chased after him without hesitation. The immortal fiend monster charged towards an immortal venerable expert from the Grand Star Hall and started an earth-shattering battle with him. On the other hand, Su Fong stepped on the fire scar and extended a pair of fire cloud wings on his back. With a whoosh, he charged towards Yin Xiao. Kill him. Yin Xiao finally recovered from her shock and ordered Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, beside her. How dare you be so arrogant in front of me? Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, sneered disdainfully. He formed a seal and unleashed a starry sword chi that swept towards Su Fong like a tide. Underworld Reincarnation Sword. A reincarnation divine aura exploded from Su Fong's body. The underworld reincarnation sword appeared beside him and circled around him. At the same time, Su Fong also activated the power of the World Seed and combined it with the reincarnation force to form a shocking whirlpool with the reincarnation Great Tao aura. It sucked in Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable's starry sword chi and quickly devoured it. Then, it was reincarnated and surged towards Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable. The underworld reincarnation sword had the strange ability to reincarnate the enemy's divine ability aura. In the past, Su Fong was still weak and could not wield the true power of the underworld reincarnation sword. Now that his cultivation had reached the 4 paths of Saint Immortal Realm, and his purple Chi Dharma spirit had become perfect, he could wield the power of the underworld reincarnation sword above the 9th level. Facing Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, Su Fong could only rely on the power of a Tao artifact. Therefore, he immediately used the Underworld Reincarnation Sword. The Underworld Reincarnation Sword of the Underworld Devil Emperor is indeed extraordinary. However, with your cultivation realm, it's obvious that you have the wrong idea to use a Tao artifact to fight against me. Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable's expression changed. He used his Bi Dao artifact and released a dazzling and sharp starry sword chi. It shattered the counterattack of the reincarnation sword and swept towards Su Fong in an overwhelming manner. Su Fong did not retreat. Instead, he took a step forward and faced the sword chi head-on. "You're courting death." Ji Xing, immortal venerable, sneered. Suddenly, a purple chi burst out of Su Fong's body and released a divine aura that made Ji Xing, immortal venerable's bead Dao artifact tremble. Then, Su Fongdao waved his hand. The bead Dao artifact was not controlled by Ji Xing, immortal venerable, and flew towards Su Fong. With a flip of his hand, Su Fong stored the bead Dao artifact into his body. Under the dumbfounded gaze of Ji Xing, immortal venerable, and many experts of the Great Star Hall, he charged towards Yun Xiao and reached out to grab her neck. =our download address. Mobile reading, bibliographic review. Chapter 1466. Only then did the experts of Hongxing Hall come to their senses. However, Yun Xiao was in Su Fong's hands. Who would dare to act rashly? Lady Yun is of noble status. If you dare to lay a finger on her, you will become the enemy of Hongxing Hall. Don't do anything stupid. Yun Xiao was caught by Su Fong right under Ji Xing, venerable immortal's nose. Ji Xing, venerable immortal, was shocked and angry, so he threatened. "Is that so? Lady Yun wants to kill me again and again, but I can't lay a finger on her. Hongxing Hall is so domineering. Su Fong has never shown mercy to those who want to kill me. Besides, if I let her go, will Hongxing Hall be polite to me?" Su Fong retorted with a ruthless look in his eyes. Yun Xiao was in Su Fong's hands, but she didn't panic or panic. Instead, she sneered. "Do you think you can control my life and death? If you kill me, you, your family, friends, and your forces will pay a heavy price. Do you dare to kill me?" Su Fong furrowed his brows. Yun Xiao looked smug and shouted coldly, "Since you don't dare to kill me, why don't you let go? Why wouldn't I dare to kill you?" Su Fong suddenly sneered. "You tried to kill me, so it's only right that I kill you now. If Hongxing Hall wants to seek revenge, Su Fong will be there for you. If Hongxing Hall dares to lay a finger on my family, friends, or implicate others." His sharp eyes swept across Ji Xing, venerable immortal, and the experts of Hongxing Hall. In the next moment, Su Fong suddenly pushed his purple Qi Dharma spirit to the extreme and performed the life-shrinking technique. "Fate and creation, I control the heaven's secrets. If I am the master, all the worlds will submit to me. If I am the master, all the worlds will submit to me." It turned out that Su Fong performed the purple Qi Dharma spirit and the life-shrinking technique to suppress and devour fate. Purple Qi lingered around Su Fong's body. After a burst of rolling, it condensed into a purple cloud umbrella with an area of 20 zhang above his head. A supreme divine power immediately enveloped the space. Boom! There seemed to be an invisible hand that grabbed Lucky Star, Immortal Venerable, and the other experts of Grand Star Hall. What divine ability is this? Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable's eyes were filled with shock. The great Tao he cultivated was the Tao of stars. Moreover, it was a very unique Tao of lucky stars. His ability to sense invisible fortune was very sharp. At this moment, he felt that his luck was being forcefully taken away by the invisible hand. How important was luck to any cultivator? Immortals possess the unrivaled ability to collapse mountains and sever rivers. But besides evil path and demonic path cultivators, there were very few cultivators that would willfully slaughter innocent people. This was because doing so would result in a loss of destiny. If one's luck was no longer present, not only would it be detrimental to one's cultivation, all sorts of calamities and misfortune would fall upon one's body. This was what people often said. Even drinking cold water would cause one's teeth to be stuffed. However, karmic luck was something that could not be seen or touched. It could not be captured or controlled. There was no divine ability that could seize the karmic luck of others. How could Ji Xing not be shocked when he saw Su Fong using his divine ability to forcefully and overbearingly seize the fortune of the cultivators of Grand Star Hall? Lucky Star, heavenly luck. A purple-white starlight rushed out from the top of Jixing Immortal Venerable's head and condensed into a dazzling star, releasing an auspicious aura that enveloped his body. Boom! The auspicious aura that Jixing Immortal Venerable tried to use to protect his own luck only lasted for less than a breath before it was shattered. A large amount of his luck was plundered by the invisible devouring force, but he managed to retain a lot of his luck. The other experts of Grand Star Hall did not have such a divine ability like Jixing Immortal Venerables. Although Su Fang's divine ability did not cause any substantial harm to them, each of them had a feeling that a great disaster was about to befall them. All of a sudden, they began to panic. The immortal venerable expert who was fighting the immortal and demonic monster was locked in a fierce battle with the monster. Suddenly, an ominous premonition surged in his heart, and he immediately retreated. Unexpectedly, a spatial turbulence swept over and affected the immortal venerable expert's movement technique, causing him to be stopped for a moment. The barrier of the immortal world where the boundless secular palace was located was constantly crumbling due to the bald old man's destruction, causing the energy in the space to become chaotic. Such spatial turbulence could be seen everywhere, but it did not affect Immortal Venerables much. However, it became very deadly during the critical moment of the battle between Immortal Venerables. The immortal and demonic monster seized the opportunity and punched the Immortal Venerable from Grand Star Hall in the back, causing him to be severely injured and sent flying. At this moment, another huge debris was swept over by the turbulence and hit the Immortal Venerable from Grand Star Hall. He lost control of his body, and the immortal and demonic monster activated the yin-yang immortal and demonic scissors to cut off a piece of flesh from his right shoulder. How can I be so unlucky? The Immortal Venerable from Grand Star Hall was so frightened that he fled far away. However, the misfortune did not end there. He arrived above the immortal world, but as soon as he appeared, a crack suddenly appeared in the void and sucked him in, causing him to disappear without a trace. In the Star Abyss, Immortal Venerables would not die if they were sucked into the spatial turbulence, but they would still lose a layer of skin. The series of events that happened to this man seemed to be a coincidence, but there seemed to be a force of the heavenly Tao that caused all these things to happen. Jixing Immortal Venerable and the expert from Grand Star Hall were ashen-faced. They looked at Su Fang with fear in their eyes, as if he was the incarnation of the heavenly Tao that controlled their fates. Everything that happened just now seemed to have taken a long time, but it actually happened in a flash. Whatever means you have, Grand Star Hall, use them all. I, Su Fang, will take them all. If you dare to target the people around me, I, Su Fang, swear that I will remove your Grand Star Hall from the macro world. As soon as Su Fang's voice faded away, he suddenly exerted force in his hand. Crack! Yin Xiao's neck was crushed and the sea of her divine aperture was destroyed by Su Fang's force. She died on the spot. The arrogant and spoiled Miss Yun's face was filled with disbelief, unwillingness, and despair. Even in death, she could not believe that Su Fang would be so ruthless. Intimidated by Su Fang's heaven-defying divine skill and his powerful and ruthless means, Jixing Immortal Venerable and the expert from Grand Star Hall did not dare to stop him or take revenge for Yun Xiao. Let's go. Su Fang put Yun Xiao's body into the Zhenlong realm and then sent a message to his second primordial spirit. He then flew out of the collapsing, boundless secular palace and into the depths of the Star Abyss. Elder Jixing, should we? An expert from Grand Star Hall asked Jixing Immortal Venerable cautiously. While Jixing Immortal Venerable was hesitating, a figure flew out of an area of turbulence. It was the bald old man. After he appeared, the bald old man staggered and almost could not stand in the air. His chi was in disorder and his face was pale. There were many wounds on his body that were dripping with blood. He looked like he was seriously injured. Jixing Immortal Venerable and the others turned pale with fright. Great Elder Yin, I was lucky to survive and won't die for the time being. That human-shaped divine artifact is also missing. What a heaven-defying divine artifact. After it was completely awakened, its strength was so terrifying that even I was no match for it. Only Ancestor Grandstar could suppress it. This time, Grandstar Hall went for wool and came home shorn. The eyes of the bald old man were filled with fear as he smiled bitterly. The divine light swept over. Yun Xiao and the other immortal venerable expert were nowhere to be seen. He also could not sense their qi. The bald old man's expression changed instantly. Where is Yun Xiao? Miss Yun was killed by Su Fong. Ji Xing, immortal venerable, braced himself and said. Then he told the bald old man what had just happened. The bald old man's deep eyes emitted a sharp, killing intent. A moment later, he heaved a long sigh. His aura weakened and the light in his eyes dimmed. It seems that I have underestimated Su Fong. His divine ability, luck, cunning, and means are far from what an ordinary person can compare to. Perhaps he has already fused with the heaven-defying divine artifact and is now under his control. If I continue to clash with him, I'm afraid that the Great Star Hall will be destroyed. Everyone in Grand Star Hall was shocked. Some of them found it hard to believe the bald old man's words. No matter how heaven-defying Su Fong was, he was only a sane immortal. The overlord of a desolate celestial region was no different from a country bumpkin in their eyes. The Great Star Hall's influence spanned across a great world, and its overall strength was terrifying. How could it possibly be destroyed by him? The bald old man said coldly, now that the world is changing, for divine suns are rising into the sky, and a catastrophe is sweeping across the great world. Usually, when a catastrophe strikes, there will be a peerless figure who will rise to the top. This kind of figure will step on the blood and bones of countless experts to reach the peak. In my opinion, Su Fong is a peerless figure who rose to the top during this catastrophe. Everyone in Grand Star Hall fell into deep thought. Ji Xing, immortal venerable, said, if we ask Grand Star Ancestor to kill Su Fong before he rises, the Grand Star Ancestor is the stabilizing force of the Grand Star Hall. How can he make a move unless it's a matter of life and death for the Grand Star Hall? The bald old man shouted coldly and interrupted Ji Xing, immortal venerable. Ji Xing, immortal venerable, was still unwilling to give up. Are we going to let go of the grudge between Miss Yun Xiao and the Grand Star Hall? Let's just let it go. The bald old man sighed sadly. He continued, the Grand Star Hall is a chamber of commerce. It's not because of strength or killing that the Grand Star Hall is able to survive for countless years and become the #1 chamber of commerce in the great world. It's because of the way of business. Over the years, the Chamber of Commerce's strength has grown and has become less like a chamber of commerce. Instead, it's more like a group of bandits. It's arrogant and overbearing. In the long run, it won't be long before it's destroyed. Pass down my order. From now on, no one from the Grand Star Hall is allowed to step into this immortal realm. Those who violate my order will be killed. The bald old man issued the order majestically and led everyone from the Grand Star Hall out of the Star Abyss. Before Ji Xing, immortal venerable, left, he looked into the depths of the abyss with greed in his eyes. Su Fong and the monster had been in the abyss for more than 10 days. With their strength, it was difficult for them to continue going deeper. Finally, they arrived above a shattered star. Whoosh! Celestial treasure appeared. In the depths of the Star Abyss, it actually dared to fearlessly travel through space. Only it dared to do so. That person escaped by a fluke. It's time for me to leave this world and go to a higher world. I'm here to inform you, Celestial Treasure said coldly. Su Fong said, go. I'll cultivate in seclusion here for 100 years before leaving the Star Abyss. I'm looking forward to meeting you in the myriad heavens. I hope that when we meet again, you'll be qualified to be my true master. Celestial Treasure left the debris of stars with a cold, stiff, and arrogant voice. Su Fong entered the true dragon world. Then, he turned the true dragon world into a speck of dust and landed on the ground. After entering the cultivation dojo, Su Fong began to digest the gains from the trip to the boundless secular palace. == our download address. Mobile reading, bibliographic review. Chapter 1467. His trip to the boundless secular palace had been a fruitful one. After devouring the coiling dragon wood, His dragon-subduing true body had undergone a great transformation and was close to reaching full maturity. After that, he had devoured the primordial purple chi produced when the divine artifact was born. The purple chi Dharma spirit had finally become perfect, and the artifact spirit would awaken soon. Although he had failed to obtain the heaven-defying divine artifact made by Emperor Tianbao, he had unexpectedly obtained Emperor Tianbao's artifact, refining Great Tao. It would be of great help to Su Fang's future cultivation. He could use this rare time to digest these gains. Su Fang's mind moved. A wisp of consciousness carried Yun Xiao's corpse to him. He took Yun Xiao's storage ring and erased the seal on it. He separated a wisp of consciousness and looked inside. In addition to a large amount of resources, there are all kinds of spiritual herbs that Yun Xiao had collected in the boundless secular palace. The flame-containing mushroom that Su Fang was looking for was also among the many items. With the help of the flame-containing mushroom, the 41st Yang Meridian should be born soon. The already matured Fire Cloud Emperor's physique will definitely increase quite a bit on the basis of maturation equals N_1. Su Fang's heart was filled with anticipation. He immediately put the flame-containing mushroom into the yin-yang Dao wheel formed by the 40 Yang Meridians and burned it with the 9 suns' immortal fire. Sizzle, sizzle. The flame-containing mushroom immediately turned into burning flames and merged with the 9 suns' immortal fire. The world seed also began to absorb the flames of the flame-containing mushroom, causing one of the fiery red leaves to burn like a flame. After devouring the flame-containing mushroom, not only my yang energy, but even the world seed and fire elemental abilities will improve. Looks like I have to continue collecting fire elemental spiritual herbs in the future. It would be best if I could find an exotic flame seed. The fire elemental energy contained in the flame-containing mushroom was incomparably abundant and pure. It would take some time before it could be completely absorbed. Su Fang was in no hurry. He activated the 9 yang, 9 transformations, and used the yang energy from the flame-containing mushroom to break the 41st meridian. At the same time, Su Fang created numerous blood clones to cultivate various techniques, such as the Heavenly Workings life-shrinking art, the true insight of Misty World, the Yellow Springs Blood Sea, the Heaven-Conquering Emperor incantation, the Dragonfolk techniques, and the Heaven Devil Codex of the Devil Folk. At this time, Emperor Tianbao's refining path was added. However, he was not cultivating it. Instead, he was comprehending the essence of the refining path. His main cultivation method was still the 9 yang, 9 transformations. In the end, the refining path could only assist in cultivating his own world. Thanks to Su Fang's perfected body and the 9 changes of the 9 suns, his body was full of yang qi. In addition, he had devoured Yu Jingnian's Dao body, which allowed Su Fang to perfectly merge the cultivation methods and divine powers of immortals, demons, and devils that couldn't coexist. If it were any other cultivator, even an immortal venerable, who had cultivated so many cultivation techniques, they would definitely explode and die due to the conflict of various energies. Su Fang also sent the dragon bird into the Heaven and Earth Dao Palace to absorb the flame mushroom and his own yang qi. Second primordial spirit, Sister Bai, Vermilion Emperor, Tontian Demon Venerable, Undying Tortoise, come here. While Su Fang was cultivating, he summoned all the immortal demons and monsters, as well as the powerful Big Goblin. He provided them with the life essence devoured and refined by the underworld blood sea for their cultivation. Up until now, Su Fang had yet to fully devour demon Savramansi's body. Coupled with the various resources he had obtained from Gong Yu and Yun Xiao, as well as the spiritual herbs and elixirs he had obtained from the boundless secular palace, Su Fang had no shortage of cultivation resources. The immortal demons and monsters were Su Fang's most powerful combat force. Su Fang naturally didn't hold back. Su Fang had never been stingy with the powerful big goblins, such as Bai Ling. Their strength couldn't keep up with Su Fang's improvement. Therefore, Su Fang also increased the investment in them. Seeing that among the powerful big goblins, only the Green Feather Emperor was missing, Su Fong's mood suddenly became heavy. The first thing he would do after leaving the Star Abyss was to find the Green Feather Emperor. About 10 years later, there was a huge commotion in the Yin-Yang Dao Wheel. He peeled off the Yang Immortal to check the Yin-Yang Dao Wheel. After such a long period of impact, with the help of the flame-containing mushroom's energy, the 41st meridian that was being impacted was mostly burning with Yang Qi flames. The 41st Yang meridian is about to be born equals in_1. Su Fong was overjoyed at the birth of another Yang meridian. Therefore, he gathered all the Yang Qi in the Yang meridian and began to impact the outer meridian. At the same time, he urged the true Qi in his body and the yin-yang world force in the world seed to pour into this meridian. He gathered all his strength to promote the birth of the Yang meridian. After thousands of impacts, the outer meridian shook with a pop. Then, a burst of Yang Qi exploded from the Xianguang. It swept from the meridian that was being impacted to the first meridian and finally returned to all the Yang meridians. The 41st meridian turned into a jade-like Yang meridian. A new Yang meridian was successfully born. The 41st Yang meridian approached the Yin-Yang Dao Wheel and became a part of it. Yang Qi flowed in every Yang meridian and finally flowed into the world seed. The leaves of the world seed had become rounder, and the bulges on the leaf stalk had also become more prominent. It was as if new leaves were going to sprout at any moment. The entire heaven and earth Dao palace was filled with a divine aura. The dragon bird bathed in this aura seemed to be enjoying it very much. The Xianming Thunder Archive and the Underworld Reincarnation Sword were also trembling with excitement. He activated the Fire Cloud Emperor body. His entire body immediately turned into a burning state like a fire cloud. The area, power, and duration of the fire cloud were more than twice as large as when it had just matured. Su Fong did not stop cultivating. Instead, he kept devouring fire elemental spiritual objects to make up for the Yang Qi consumed to birth the 41st Yang meridian. He continued to settle in the state of cultivation. Su Fong kept comprehending the great Tao of refining from the memories of the divine artifact, celestial treasure, and the inner world of his body. He had a deeper understanding of his own cultivation of the supreme heavenly Tao. The great Tao of refining of the celestial treasure emperor is indeed extraordinary. However, it's best to confirm it before I dare to cultivate. Su Fong immediately separated a young nascent soul and entered the origin sacred realm. He dared not make the slightest mistake in cultivation. Therefore, Su Fong planned to find mysterious woman to confirm his own comprehension first. In the mysterious space of the crimson ancient mirror, Su Fong could already walk and even fly slowly in the air. Such a change surprised Su Fong. The benefits brought by the purple Qi Dharma spirit and the improvement of his cultivation realm and Yang meridian greatly reduced the shackles of the mirror space on him. He was not too far away from being able to truly control the mirror. Senior, I have something to ask. Su Fong activated his Yang Qi in thought, then waited for the mysterious woman to appear. In less than 2 hours, the familiar 9 Yin Cold Qi appeared out of nowhere. The familiar mysterious woman's voice sounded faintly around Su Fong. What's the matter? You've actually born 41 Yang Meridian? According to your speed, you can actually have 41 Yang Meridian in such a short time. This is really beyond my expectations. Extraordinary, you are indeed extraordinary. Su Fong was also delighted to receive the mysterious woman's praise. Speak. What is it that you don't understand? Su Fong said, I accidentally obtained a cultivation method of a great Tao called the Great Tao of Refining. I gained some comprehension from it and plan to cultivate and comprehend its essence to assist the 9 suns transformation. The mysterious woman's voice suddenly became serious. There are countless blacksmiths who cultivate the Great Tao of Refining. What is so special about the Great Tao of Refining that you obtained? How can it be of any help to the 9 suns transformation? In the path of cultivation, one must not bite off more than they can chew. This is a great taboo for cultivators equals in_1. Su Fong quickly said, Senior, the great Tao of refining was created by the heavenly treasure emperor who refined the purple Qi Dharma spirit. It is very extraordinary. Please take a look. A blacksmith who refined the purple Qi Dharma spirit? This person is very extraordinary. The great Tao that he created might have some tricks. Let me take a look. The mysterious woman's voice became more serious. Su Fong released his thought and was sensed by the mysterious woman. After deciphering the great Tao of refining, the mysterious woman fell silent for a moment before saying, Tell me about your comprehension. Su Fong could not hear any joy or anger from the mysterious woman's tone. He felt uneasy as he narrated his comprehension. The so-called great Tao of refining is to cultivate the body as a Tao artifact. The human body is the Tao palace of heaven and earth. With fire elemental power, one can constantly refine the body and cultivate the 5 elements as well as the powers and laws outside the 5 elements. From there, one can form one's own world and finally step onto the peak of cultivation. As for my 9 sons transformation and the world seed, it is very similar to the great Tao of refining. My yang meridian and the world seed form the Tao palace of heaven and earth. The world seed contains the various abilities of my true body. When the world seed finally grows into a world tree, it will be the energy of the universe and the great Tao laws that govern energy. There are many great Tao in the 3 realms. The great Tao of wood, great Tao of earth, and other great Tao of the 5 elements. There are also the great Tao of emperor, great Tao of sword, great Tao of alchemy, artifact, array, and other great Tao of essence, soul, avatar, body, death, and other great Tao. There are also countless unknown great Tao. Different great Tao cultivators can reach different heights on the path of cultivation. Some great Taos can only linger at the foot of a mountain. Some can reach halfway up the mountain. Some are shortcuts or dangerous paths that are extremely dangerous. However, there are very few great Taos that can truly step onto the peak of cultivation. The 9 sons transformation that I cultivate and the great Tao of refining that Emperor Celestial Treasure comprehended can both reach the peak of cultivation. The 9 sons transformation is clearly higher than the great Tao of refining. However, even though the great Tao is the same, the two also have astonishing similarities. Therefore, the attainment of artifact refining is of great help to my cultivation. It can help me take fewer detours on my path to the peak and walk more steadily and faster. These were all Su Fong's comprehensions. Extraordinary, truly extraordinary. The mysterious woman sighed. Her voice, which rarely fluctuated, contained a hint of shock and admiration. A great world's refinement master was able to create such a great Tao with his own insights. Emperor Celestial Treasure is truly a rare, peerless genius in the 3 realms. Unfortunately, he was born in a great world. If he was born in a great world, he would sooner or later become a pinnacle expert in the 3 realms. For you to be able to comprehend so much from the great Tao of refining and even think of combining it with the 9 sons transformation to cultivate the Tao palace of heaven and earth, your comprehension ability is extremely extraordinary. Although it is inferior to Emperor Celestial Treasure, it is still rare in the 3 realms. You can study the great Tao of refining, but it can only be used as a supplement. Your cultivation should still focus on the 9 sons transformation. Work hard. Your physical body has reached perfection, and you have also cultivated all sorts of true bodies. Hence, your Tao palace of heaven and earth is unique. Even I cannot predict how high you can reach in the supreme heavenly Tao. Hence, you still have to rely on your own exploration and comprehension. After the mysterious woman finished speaking, her voice did not sound again. Just like before, she did not give Su Fong a chance to speak. =_ our download address. Cell phone reading. Book review. Chapter 1468. Su Fong's Yang Immortal left the mirror space and returned to his body. My own world will be the heaven and earth Tao palace formed by the Yang Meridian and World Seed. The various true body abilities will be the power and laws of the universe. Emperor Tianbao's weapon, refining great Tao, will allow me to fuse all kinds of power into my own world. The cultivation of the heaven and earth Tao palace requires the continuous birth of the yang meridian and the growth of the world seed. This will take a very long time. The power and laws that form the world are so vast. I can't cultivate them all, and there's no need for me to do so. I only need to cultivate a few true bodies that form the foundation of the world, and the heaven and earth Tao palace will evolve like the real world and eventually form my own world. I've already cultivated the fire cloud, emperor physique, and black lotus true body. I need to mature the dragon subduing true body, blood transformation true body, thunder punishment true body, and yellow spring true body as soon as possible. Then I'll try to cultivate the other true body abilities needed to form my own world. After comprehending Emperor Tianbao's weapon, refining great Tao, Su Fang had a very clear understanding of his own cultivation path. It was as if he had opened up a path to the peak in the heavy fog. While Su Fang cultivated various cultivation techniques, he took off a young immortal to learn the weapon refining art left behind by Emperor Tianbao. Of course, his goal was not to become a weapon refining master. Su Fang had Old Monster Zhu Tian for refining pills and Deadlord for weapon refining. Deadlord's mind and consciousness had been controlled by Night Demon's second primordial spirit. He had become a commander of corpse refinement puppets under Su Fang and was also a weapon refining master. Deadlord used to be the #1 person of the evil path. Not only was he extremely powerful, but his weapon refining skills were also at the peak of the great world. He could refine a King Grey Dao artifact, like the Tiangang Cauldron. However, no matter how good he was, he could not compare to Emperor Tianbao. Su Fang's weapon refining skills was to further comprehend the weapon refining Great Dao through weapon refining. It's time for the Purple Cloud Dharma Spirit's origin spirit to awaken. Within the bloody whirlpool formed by the yellow spring blood sea, Su Fang's true body flipped his hand and took out over 1,000 magic treasures. Furthermore, all of them were magic treasures with weapon spirits. Activating the Purple Chi Dharma Spirit, Su Fang was surrounded by a mysterious and dense purple chi. A purple cloud swept out and swept across the thousands of magic treasures. Rays of spirit light were sucked out from the magic treasures. All of the magic treasures' weapon spirits were swept up by the purple cloud and returned to Su Fang's body to be devoured by the purple cloud magic spirit. It turned out that Su Fang wanted to devour the weapon spirit, allowing the purple cloud lost spirit, which was already in a perfect state, to awaken and continue to grow stronger. Once a magic treasure lost its artifact spirit, its power would be greatly reduced. Furthermore, a magic treasure with an artifact spirit was extremely precious to cultivators. Su Fang actually used the weapon spirits of the magic treasures as supplements for the purple cloud lost spirit to devour. It could be said that he was a prodigal to the extreme. If other cultivators saw this, they would definitely vomit blood in anger. The purple cloud lost spirit was extremely important to Su Fang. In Su Fang's mind, it was even more important than the origin sacred mirror. In order to make the purple cloud lost spirit stronger, he also did not hesitate to invest in it. Moreover, Su Fang had no shortage of Dao weapons in his hands. This time, from Gong Yu's storage ring, he obtained the inheritance of the Divine Palace clan. Just the number of Dao weapons alone was more than 1 million. Therefore, he did not feel distressed at all when wasting Dao weapons like this. Rich people were so capricious. After devouring nearly 100,000 weapon spirits, the purple cloud lost spirit in his body suddenly exploded, roaring and boiling madly in his flesh and meridians. Su Fang guessed what was going to happen and could not help but get excited. After the purple cloud lost spirit's movement lasted for more than 10 breaths, it suddenly quieted down. Immediately, a faint voice sounded from the depths of Su Fang's body. "My master, you actually found that thing and made me so perfect. It really surprised me." The original spirit of the purple cloud lost spirit was completely awakened. Immediately, a young immortal separated and came to a deep and mysterious purple cloud space in the depths of his body. Since devouring the great pregnant purple cloud produced when the heavenly treasure was born, the purple cloud lost spirit had entered a perfect state. Such a purple cloud space had been formed in Su Fang's body. A purple cloud floated in the purple cloud space, with an ethereal and mysterious aura. It was the original spirit of the purple cloud lost spirit. Hello, purple cloud lost spirit. Su Fang's young immortal greeted with some joy. My former master, the heavenly treasure emperor, called me Azi. You're my new master, of course, you can call me that. A faint voice came from the purple cloud. Azi, the heavenly treasure emperor has already died in the boundless secular palace. I buried his body in the true dragon realm. When I saw my old master's body, I had already awakened a part of my consciousness and knew these things. The voice in the purple cloud had a touch of sadness and seemed to be full of spirituality. Su Fang said, "The two regrets of the heavenly treasure emperor have now been fulfilled. You have also completely awakened. In the future, I will need your help to reach the peak of the great Tao." The original spirit of the purple cloud lost spirit said, faintly, "Of course. The stronger you are, the stronger I will be. When you reach the peak of the great Tao, I will also become an eternal existence." Then the original spirit said, "I need to keep devouring the great pregnant purple cloud, and it's best if it's the great pregnant purple cloud produced when the divine artifact was born and more weapon spirits. Only then can I grow, mature, and help my master. Of course, I'm very curious about what you will be like when you grow to your final state. I'm not very sure, but my old master once said that not only do I have the ability to control magic treasures, but I can also bring my master supreme luck and even devour luck. In the end, I can also help my master cultivate a kind of real body." Cultivate a kind of real body? Yes. At that time, I will bring my master great luck of the great Tao, and I can even control the luck of the great Tao. When my master cultivates his own world, I will be the luck of the great Tao in his own world. Su Fangdao was shocked, and then surprised and happy. At this time, Law suddenly sighed and said, "It's incredible. If that's the case, Su Fang, your own world will be the only cultivator in the three realms with luck. I have never heard of such a world. In the future, not only will it reach the peak of the great Tao, but it will also surpass the limits of the world and reach a higher level." Su Fang had always believed in Law's words. The origin spirit suddenly said, "Master, the origin spirit in your body originally had great luck. It should have been a peerless genius, but it was arrogant and unruly. In the end, it was envied by the great Tao, and it had bad luck and almost died." Su Fang couldn't help but be stunned. Law sighed and said, "What an extraordinary origin spirit. It can actually see my luck. However, it has been tainted by my master's luck, so its luck has reversed. In the future, it will definitely rise against the heavens and become a supreme existence." Law laughed loudly. "Thank you for your auspicious words. This is the most comfortable thing I've heard in the countless years I've been imprisoned in the blood jade." The time of cultivation passed quickly. Unknowingly, Su Fang had already spent 100 years in the star abyss. Whoosh! Su Fang flew out of the true dragon realm, and tribulation chi faintly seeped out of his body. It turned out that after 100 years of cultivation, Su Fang had reached the edge of advancing to the 5 Tao Saint Immortal Realm. When one's cultivation reached the Saint Immortal Realm, the further one advanced, the harder it was to advance. There were many reasons why Su Fang's speed of improvement didn't slow down. There were many reasons. The Acheron Blood Sea's devouring ability, the yang energy from cultivating the 9 transformations of the 9 suns, various true body abilities, especially the World Seed. With all these factors combined together, coupled with the endless supply of pills, spiritual items, and resources, it was impossible for his cultivation to slow down. There was no trace of natural spiritual energy in the star abyss, so it was obviously not suitable for a breakthrough. Su Fang could only forcibly suppress it and wait until he left the abyss to break through. 100 years had already passed. The divine artifact and heavenly treasure must have left the great world and gone to the end of the world. Although Su Fong had fused with this heaven-defying divine artifact, he shouldn't be noticed by the will of the heavenly Tao. However, Su Fong was cautious. He released a Bloodwater clone in advance and flew out of the star abyss to the outside world. Another half a year later, the Bloodwater clone returned safely. Only then did Su Fong fly out of the abyss. Just as he was about to fly out of the abyss, Bai Ling's voice suddenly came from the true dragon realm. Su Fong, let me out. I'm going to become a shifter the arch. Bai Ling was also going to become a shifter the arch? Su Fong was surprised and delighted. It could be said that good things kept coming. Whoosh! Bai Ling flew out of the true dragon realm, drawing a strange arc in the sky before heading straight for a material continent. Her voice came from afar. Brother, I'm going to be like the Green Feather Emperor and undergo the shifter of the arch tribulation by myself. You don't have to follow me. Undergo the tribulation by herself? How could Su Fong let Bai Ling undergo the tribulation by herself? He immediately released the immortal fiend monster and followed closely behind Bai Ling. After Su Fong flew out of the abyss, he came to a floating ruin. The tribulation aura in his body had reached a point where it was difficult to suppress, so he could only advance on the spot. Su Fong first used the Demon Sealing Emperor's heavenly seal to create a huge array formation around him. Then, he sat cross-legged in the middle of the array formation. After forming a seal, a wave of tribulation aura shot out from his body. As soon as the tribulation aura appeared, it immediately burned into tribulation fire. At the same time, Su Fong also activated the 9 Suns, immortal fire. He used the opportunity of advancement to further cleanse his marrow and refine his body with the blacksmith Great Tao's mental cultivation method. The flames burned, and the burning area reached more than 2,000 feet. Layers of impurities seeped out of his body and turned into ashes in the tribulation fire. As he activated the blacksmith Great Tao's mental cultivation method, the amount of impurities that appeared in this advancement was far more than before. His body was cleansed more thoroughly. Su Fong sat cross-legged in the middle of the blazing tribulation fire. His eyes were calm. Suddenly, whoosh, a figure appeared above the ruins. It was Master Truth. Su Fong, let's see how you can escape from me this time. Great Elder Yun of the Great Star Hall has personally come. That supreme divine artifact must have fallen into the hands of the Great Star Hall. I have no fate with the divine artifact. Suppressing you will not be a waste of effort. Also, He Yao, who is about to become a demon emperor, will not escape from me. He will become my mount. Master Truth's eyes were filled with pride. He looked at Su Fong as if he was already in the bag. Whoosh! Master Truth swooped down and punched the array formation. =_ download address. Mobile reading. Bibliographic review. Chapter 1469. Boom! The earth shook and the space trembled. The entire ruins suddenly sank into the star abyss. Dijin Master's punch seemed to be able to shake the heavens. However, after the formation shook for a while, some of its imprints were broken, but it was still as stable as a rock. The array is actually so stable. Is Su Fong also an array master? Dijin Master raised his white eyebrows. Obviously, this result was far beyond his expectations. Su Fong, who was in the tribulation fire, looked up with cold eyes. After Dijin Master left the boundless secular palace, Su Fong had long expected him to return. However, he did not expect that after 100 years, he was still guarding outside the star abyss. He also did not expect that Dijin Master, a Buddhist cultivator, would be so shameless. At the critical moment of Su Fong's breakthrough, and when the immortal demon monster was not around, he took the opportunity to attack. Last time, Dijin Master left empty-handed in order to seize the heaven-defying divine artifact. This time, Dijin Master came back again. He must not be alone. He must have invited a powerhouse to help him. But now, he appeared alone. His helper must have followed Sister Bai and the immortal demon monster. Sister Bai is at the critical moment of her tribulation. What should I do? Although Su Fong was extremely anxious, his face was calm. Although his cultivation time was not long, He had developed a firm Tao heart that would not be shocked even if a mountain collapsed in front of him. The only thing he could do now was to speed up his breakthrough, then suppress Dijun Master and go to help Bai Ling and the immortal demon monster. Su Fang's eyes showed a decisive look. He then urged the Nine Suns' immortal fire with all his strength, making the tribulation fire burn more fiercely. In this way, the time needed for the breakthrough would be greatly reduced, but the pain for Su Fang would also be doubled. Boom! Dijun Master launched a fierce attack on the outer array. The incomparably sturdy array was also shattered layer by layer. 10 days later. Boom! Master Dijun couldn't help but feel a little annoyed that he couldn't break the outer array formation even after such a long time. He used the supreme Buddhist divine ability, Buddha's Wrath Vajra body, and didn't hesitate to use a terrifying Buddhist palm print. The array collapsed, and even the ruins where Su Fang was located were shattered into countless fragments under the power of Dijun Master. Su Fang, obediently hand over everything you have. I will be merciful, and perhaps I will let you die a little faster. Dijun laughed loudly and rushed towards Su Fang. Whoosh! Whoosh! With a thought, Su Fang released the undead king and the refined corpse puppet from his body. The corpse refining puppets quickly gathered in front of him, forming a vast ocean. There were no less than 100,000 of them. These were the elites that Su Fang had carefully selected from the tens of millions of corpse refining puppets. Every single one of them had reached the level of a Yushin stage cultivator. Protect Master. Kill. The undead lord let out an evil roar and unleashed the sky-burying underworld coffin, creating a world of death in the void. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The refined corpse army rushed out like a well-trained elite army. They were like fish in water in the world of death. Monstrous death chi burst out as they rushed towards Dijun Master. My Buddhist chi and Buddhist magic can restrain all evil forces. Su Fang, how dare you resurrect cultivators to fight me? Isn't that ridiculous? I'm afraid you have exhausted all your tricks now. Boom! Dijun Master unleashed a golden Buddhist chi, like a Buddha descending to the world, suppressing all evil in the world and destroying the refined corpse puppets batch by batch. However, the refined corpse puppets were not afraid of death. They rushed forward one after another, bursting out their aura to wear down Dijun Master's golden Buddhist chi. Dijun Master's strength was shocking, but in the face of such a large and powerful refined corpse army, his Buddhist chi was quickly consumed. In addition, the undead lord activated the sky-burying underworld coffin. One should know that the sky-burying underworld coffin was a Tao artifact of the king grade, which was at the same level as the Xianming lightning scroll. When fully activated by the undead lord, at least 70 to 80% of its power could be unleashed, which posed a great threat to immortal venerables. These are not resurrected immortals, but refined corpse puppets. There are so many of them, and there is also that evil Tao artifact. Dijun Master thought that he could easily capture Su Fang alive this time, but only now did he realize that he had underestimated Su Fang. I must capture Su Fang alive before he completes his advancement. Otherwise, he'll be able to use his true chi to activate that Thunder Tao artifact, and I will have to return empty-handed again. Damn it! If not for the demon sweeping Bodhi Pearl being destroyed by the divine artifact, killing these resurrected cultivators would be a piece of cake. Why would it be so troublesome? Dijun Master no longer held back his strength. He activated the Buddha's Fury Vajra physique to the extreme again. Rumble, rumble. Like an angry Buddha, Dijun Master charged out of the refined corpse army's encirclement with an unstoppable force. In just a blink of an eye, he was less than 300 meters away from Su Fang. Suddenly, the tribulation fire on Su Fang's body was extinguished, and a surge of energy swept through his body. His aura was no longer at the 4th level, but the 5th level. 5 Tao, Saint Realm. Su Fang suddenly opened his eyes. Flames were burning in his eyes, and he released a fiery red light that shot toward Dijun Master. Heaven Burning Eye. The fiery light fell into Dijun Master's eyes. Even with his cultivation base, he felt a piercing pain in his eyes. Tears flowed out of his eyes, and his body slowed down. At the moment when Dijin Master was stopped, Dijin Master's body froze. Rumble, rumble. Su Fong suddenly stood up from the ground. Golden lightning flashed on his body, and his muscles and bones expanded. He instantly transformed into a giant that was almost 300 meters tall. Giant Vajra body. Clang. Two golden palms, each of which was more than 300 feet in size, flew toward Master Dijun with the power to shatter everything. Physical divine power? What kind of divine power can be compared to my angry Buddha Vajra body? Su Fong, if you had used the Xianming lightning scroll, I might have been afraid. But you used your divine power in front of me. Aren't you showing off your slight skill in front of an expert? Dijin Master sneered. He ignored the burning pain in his eyes and struck out two Buddhist palm prints. Boom, boom, boom. Su Fong's Herculean divine palm collided with Dijin Master's Buddhist light palm print. Blinding rays of light shot out and completely covered the light of the 5 suns in the sky. The sky shook violently, and the debris in the surrounding ruins were all turned into dust. The space also tumbled like waves before it shattered. Some of the refined corpse puppets that were closer to the scene were also shattered. There were less than 10,000 refined corpse puppets left. Dijin Master hurriedly activated the sky, burying Dark Coffin, and put away the remaining refined corpse puppets. He also retreated far away and waited for an opportunity to strike. The collision of the Herculean divine palm print and the Buddhist light palm print was actually a draw. This result surprised and shocked Dijin Master. Whoosh! Dijin Master and Su Fong stepped out at the same time and used their divine power. They were like two giants, fighting fiercely in the star abyss. Boom! After a dozen breaths, the two collided again and suddenly separated. Su Fong's tall body quickly returned to normal. His face was pale, and his forehead was full of tears. Although the giant Vajra body was incomparably powerful, it consumed too much yang qi. At this time, although he had 41 yang meridians, a dozen breaths time was already the limit of the giant Vajra body. Dijin Master had used a lot of Buddhist qi to fight the refined corpse puppets. After this collision, he was also exhausted and his body was trembling. However, the divine power of the Buddhist sect was long-lasting, especially the divine power of the physical body. It was best for a prolonged battle. Dijin Master could still maintain the angry Vajra body state. Su Fong, what other divine power do you have to contend with me? With your cultivation base of the 5 Tao, Saint Celestial Realm that has just broken through, you can still contend with me for a dozen breaths time. You should be proud of yourself. Seeing Su Fong's exhausted appearance, Master Dijin couldn't help but feel proud. He took a big step forward, his footsteps breaking through the void as he rushed towards Su Fong. Roar! Su Fong suddenly let out a long roar. Once again, his physical body underwent an astonishing transformation. Majestic dragon qi gushed out from his body, and he transformed into a dragon man. Other than the part below his calves, his entire body was like a real divine dragon. Profound yellow tyrant dragon claw. Su Fong's right arm shook and struck out a claw print. It tore through space and fiercely attacked Dijin Master. Divine power of the Dragon Clan. Dijin Master's smile froze. He had to use all his strength to deal with it. In the next moment, Su Fong's divine aperture burned with the Tao runes of destiny. His majestic voice suddenly sounded. In the name of the Supreme Divine Dragon, with the will of the Divine Dragon, I deprive Dijin Master of his life force. It was the Divine Dragon's curse, a peerless divine power of the Dragon Clan. After immortal Emperor Tianong died, Su Fong obtained various divine powers of the Dragon Clan from the Heavenly Tao Immortal World's Dragon Clan. Naturally, he would not let go of the Divine Dragon's curse. Due to the fact that using the Divine Dragon's curse would consume Dragon Qi and life aura, coupled with the fact that although this kind of curse was incomparably powerful, it was nothing compared to the life-shrinking technique. Thus, Su Fong had practically never used it. At this moment, Su Fong's dragon-subduing true body was about to mature. When he cast the divine power of the dragon clan in his dragon form, the power would naturally multiply. At the same time, Su Fong used the heavenly secret life shrinking technique to forcibly seize the fate of others. Even Su Fong did not expect this to be the first time he cast it. Chi. Divine Dragon's Curse? Impossible. Even the Divine Dragon's Curse of the Dragon Clan cannot be this powerful. You, how do you have such an evil divine power? Even my Buddhist divine power can't restrain it. He would never have thought that Su Fong's heavenly secret life shrinking technique was the great Tao of destiny that could restrain fate and faith. Although the divine power of the Buddhist sect was strange, it could not resist fate. Unless it was the legendary Buddha who had jumped out of the heavenly Tao's reincarnation, there was still a possibility. Su Fong also consumed a lot of energy to cast the heavenly secret life shrinking technique and the Divine Dragon's Curse. However, it was still bearable. I am the Overlord. My will is the Overlord's mantra. Su Fong's voice suddenly became cold and full of majesty. His voice seemed to be able to determine the life and death of all things. It would immediately become reality. An aura that was above the will of the heavenly Tao suddenly exploded. At the same time, a purple cloud rose from his body. It condensed into a purple cloud canopy that was more than 20 feet high above his head. In an instant, Su Fong seemed to have replaced the heavenly Tao and became the supreme ruler of the world. He ruled over everything, including Chi, mantra of the Overlord. Su Fong once again cast the supreme divine power of the Way of the Emperor. At the same time, he also activated the purple cloud Dharma spirit. =_ download address. Mobile reading, bibliographic review. Chapter 1470. The Tyrannical Emperor's Mantra and the Dragon God's Curse had similar attacking effects. However, the Tyrannical Emperor's Mantra relied on the Sovereign's divine aura to release the power of faith, while the Dragon God's Curse was a type of Dragon Clan's curse power. At this time, Su Fong's Tao of Emperor had reached the peak of the Great World. At the same time, he had merged with the perfect purple Chi Dharma spirit. The Emperor's divine aura that burst out could suppress the will and divine aura of an immortal venerable expert. Then, Su Fong formed a seal that turned into a giant golden hand more than 200 feet long. It was like the hand of the heavenly Tao. It wanted to smash Master Dijun and everything around him into pieces. Golden Lotus Buddha dust. Master Dijun rushed over aggressively. He originally thought that Su Fong was a weak chicken that could be slaughtered at will. Who would have thought that weak chicken would transform into a ferocious man-eating beast? At this time, Master Dijun no longer had the intention to capture Su Fong alive. Instead, his will to fight collapsed. He used the Golden Lotus Buddha dust, wanting to escape. A golden lotus platform quickly appeared below Master Dijun's body. Then it suddenly lifted the Golden Lotus Buddha dust. After a series of revolutions, the Golden Lotus Buddha whisk shattered into pieces, shattering the golden hand formed by Su Fong's Emperor will. In the next moment, Master Dijun was about to escape. Monk Shangda had mastered the Golden Lotus Buddha dust, but he had not fully mastered it. He was far from reaching Master Dijun's level. When the Golden Lotus platform appeared below Master Dijun, Su Fong knew what he was going to do. How could Su Fong let Master Dijun escape so easily? Immediately, Su Fong used the Thunder of Destiny to activate the Xianming Lightning Scroll. It burst out a shocking power that could destroy heaven and earth. The lightning was like a terrifying monster. After the explosion of the Golden Lotus Buddha dust, just as Master Dijun was about to escape, it fiercely bombarded his body. Boom! He was indeed worthy of being an immortal venerable, and was much stronger than ordinary immortal venerables. Moreover, he had the incomparably powerful divine ability of the Buddha's fury, Vajra, physique. Yet, Reverend Dijun's fleshly body didn't shatter and was sent flying dozens of miles away. After taking on the power of the Xianming Thunder Seal, Truth Master was not in a good condition either. His whole body was char-black, and electric currents flashed. He was like a roasted chicken, and he was in a state of serious injury. Collect for me. It turned out that the undead emperor, who had been waiting for an opportunity in the distance, had suddenly activated the heaven-bearing underworld coffin, releasing a devouring power filled with death aura, shackling Sage Truth. Sage Truth continued to struggle. However, most of his Buddhist energy had been consumed, and he was in a severely wounded state. How could he possibly escape the suppression of a peerless Tao artifact like the heaven-burying coffin? I'm actually being suppressed by a sane immortal. I'm truly unwilling to accept this. So what if he was unwilling? Sage Truth was only able to last for 5 breaths of time. He let out a roar of unwillingness before being sucked into the inner world of the heaven-bearing underworld coffin. Su Fang's mind suddenly relaxed. He staggered and could barely maintain his flying state. In order to suppress Sage Truth Master, he had activated his most powerful divine abilities, including the heavenly secret life shrinking technique and the purple aura Dharma spirit. In addition, he had just broken through to the 5 Tao Sane immortal realm and had yet to stabilize his cultivation. One could imagine how severe the test was. After this battle, although he had successfully suppressed Sage Truth Master, Su Fang had almost fallen from the 5 Tao Saint immortal realm that he had just broken through to. However, this was not the time to rest and recover. Ignoring Sage Truth Master, Su Fang quickly kept the undead emperor in the true dragon realm and released the Vermilion Emperor. After the Vermilion Emperor transformed into his demon form, Su Fang jumped on his back and shouted coldly, "Go to Sister Bai!" Whoosh! The Vermilion Emperor also knew that it was a critical moment. He unleashed all his strength and flew out. Although his speed was not as fast as the Green Feather Emperor and Bai Ling, it was still very shocking. Su Fang sat cross-legged on the Vermilion Emperor's back and swallowed 3 divine essence pills. The insides of his body turned into blood and water. He frantically devoured the pills to recover the true chi and vitality that he had consumed earlier. Half a day later, the Vermilion Emperor rushed out of the void and appeared in the sky above a material continent with Su Fang. In a short period of time, Su Fang had recovered to a great extent. The Yellow Spring Blood Sea, the Black Lotus True Form, and the Dragon Subduing True Form gave Su Fang a shocking recovery ability. Su Fang activated the Heavenly Secret Life shrinking technique and scanned the material continent with his perfected ability. His expression changed instantly. In the middle of an endless mountain range, there was a huge valley with a radius of 100 miles. However, it was not a naturally formed valley. Instead, it was an empty area that had been struck by heavenly lightning and shattered the mountain peak. It was caused by the heavenly lightning when Bai Ling was transcending the tribulation. Bai Ling had transformed into her demon form and was lying on the ground. Her aura was weak and half of her feathers had been charred or incinerated by the heavenly lightning. Shocking wounds could be seen everywhere. Moreover, her body was not only injured by the heavenly lightning, but also torn open wounds. Black blood kept flowing out of them. She looked like she had been poisoned and could die at any time. Although Bai Ling had successfully transcended the Demon Emperor tribulation, she was on the verge of death. As for the immortal fiend monster, it was fighting alone against an old man in a fiery red Taoist robe and a red scorpion big goblin that was 100 feet tall and had 2 hook-like tails. The immortal venerable expert strength was not as strong as Master Dijon's, but he was activating a fist-sized bead Tao artifact. It kept shooting out waves of primordial spirit waves, attacking the immortal fiend monster's primordial spirit like tide water. This bead Tao artifact was a King Grade Tao artifact that was at the peak of the supreme grade. It was also a primordial spirit Dharma treasure like the heavenly devil blood plate. This immortal venerable expert could activate such a quality primordial spirit Dharma treasure to such an extent that it could even resist the primordial spirit power of the second primordial spirit. The great Tao that this person cultivated was also extraordinary. It was a very rare primordial spirit great Tao. The Scorpion Big Goblin was also extremely extraordinary. The Scorpion Big Goblin was a demon emperor. The most peculiar thing about it was its 2 hook-shaped tails that were extremely poisonous. It kept shooting out two hook-shaped xingguang, one green and one blue. One scissor and one pinch, it could shatter the space. After it hooked onto the mountain peak also collapsed. Even an ordinary immortal venerable expert would have to retreat when facing such a powerful big goblin. Under the joint attack of the red-robed elder and the scorpion big goblin, the immortal fiend monster was already at the end of its tether. There were more than a dozen wounds on its body, especially the one on its right arm. It was so deep that the bone could be seen. It had almost severed its arm, and it had also been poisoned. The second primordial spirit kept releasing supreme primordial spirit power, attacking the primordial spirits of the red-robed elder and the scorpion big goblin. However, it was blocked by the red-robed elder's primordial spirit dharma treasure. Moreover, the red-robed elder cultivated the great Tao of the primordial spirit. His primordial spirit was extremely powerful, although it was not as powerful as the second primordial spirit. When he activated his primordial spirit dharma treasure, the second primordial spirit could not shake his sea of divine apertures. If not for the immortal fiend monster's strong physical body, the strange and powerful yin-yang immortal fiend power, and the second primordial spirit's ability, it would not have been able to hold on until now. The red-robed elder laughed proudly. What a powerful, immortal, venerable expert with such a strong physical body. Your primordial spirit is also so powerful. When my big goblin swallows your physical body, it will definitely break through to the demon saint level. If I refine your primordial spirit, I will also improve on the great Tao of the primordial spirit. As for that crane demon, it will become my mount. Ha! Second primordial spirit, you are no match for this immortal venerable expert. Don't worry about me. Hurry up and leave. Bai Ling said weakly to the immortal fiend monster. You're like my family. My primordial spirit and I are one. Even if I have to give up my physical body, I will not abandon you. Don't worry, my primordial spirit will succeed in breaking through soon. When he arrives, all problems will be solved. Bai Ling tried to persuade it. Brother, you are at the critical moment of breaking through. How can you be a match for Master Truth? Perhaps you have already met with misfortune. You should leave and save my primordial spirit. My primordial spirit has a doppelganger beside Fairy Xuanxin. If you merge with the doppelganger, my primordial spirit will be able to revive. You have underestimated my strength. You'll be fine. The second primordial spirit's voice was cold, but it was full of determination. Chi! The scorpion great demon once again shot out two hook-shaped mystic rays, one green and one blue. They streaked across the chest of the immortal devil monster and immediately left a deep wound, exposing its internal organs. Deadly poison sizzled and corroded the flesh, emitting a foul stench of black smoke. N_R, the immortal fiend monster was severely injured. It could no longer hold on and fell to the ground. Whoosh! The second primordial spirit shot out from between the immortal fiend monster's eyebrows. It exploded with layers of primordial spirit sword chi, which swept toward the red-robed elder and the big goblin. Yeah, you're actually residing in a stone-like imprint rune and not directly in a physical body. So you have been possessed by the primordial spirit of an expert. I don't care what kind of expert you were in the past. Die. The red-robed elder activated his primordial spirit magic treasure, which emitted a resplendent seven-colored light and shattered the primordial spirit sword chi of the second primordial spirit. Imminent strike. The one who should die should be you. A cold voice filled with killing intent suddenly sounded. It was actually a few dozen feet behind the red-robed elder. It turned out that Su Fong had used the Heaven's secret life shrinking technique to conceal his aura. He quietly and quickly appeared behind the red-robed elder. Just as Su Fong's voice sounded, a silent thunder formed by the burning Tao runes of destiny was released by Su Fong from his divine aperture. The thunder of destiny. Su Fong hated this red-robed elder to the core. He didn't hesitate to consume his life force and directly release the thunder of destiny, wanting to kill him in one fell swoop. Boom! The red-robed elder was still proud of himself a moment ago, But in the next moment, a sudden clap of thunder sounded in his divine aperture ocean. It shook his young immortal to the point of shattering, and his divine aperture ocean was on the verge of collapse. It wasn't just his primordial spirit. His physical body, golden core, and other things related to his destiny were all heavily injured. His aura immediately withered. Sufang's fierce attacks came one after another. He activated his dragon, subduing true body, and turned into a divine dragon. His right hand turned into a dragon claw, and with a fierce aura that could tear through the sky, he struck out with a claw that viciously clawed at the red-robed elder. The two of them were too close, and the profound yellow tyrant dragon claw was as fast as lightning. Caught off guard, the red-robed elder was in a heavily injured state and didn't have the consciousness to dodge or defend. His aura was immediately shattered, and the claw left a wound on his back that revealed his internal organs. Blood immediately gushed out. The red-robed elder screamed and flew forward. You are Sufang." The red-robed elder endured the intense pain and looked at Sufang in disbelief. This red-robed elder was extremely powerful. Sufang's Thunder of Destiny, which was a sneak attack, actually couldn't kill him. The main reason was that this elder cultivated the primordial spirit Great Tao and had a king-grade primordial spirit Dharma treasure. His primordial spirit was extremely powerful. "Sister Bai, are you all right?" Sufang asked Bai Ling. At the same time, he released Gui Gui and the dragon bird. Gui Gui went straight to Bai Ling to detoxify Bai Ling. Meanwhile, the dragon bird transformed into a monster that looked like both a dragon and a phoenix and pounced on the scorpion big goblin. =_ our download address. Mobile reading, bibliographic review. Chapter 1471. Sister Bai, open your mouth. With a flip of his hand, Sufang produced a ball of spiritual liquid, which fell into Bai Ling's mouth, saying, when he saw that Bai Ling was injured, Sufang had one of his blood and water clones activate the void dust cauldron to refine a divine essence pill and a large amount of yin-yang immortal sky pills into spiritual liquid. With Gui Gui's help to detoxify the poison and the divine essence pill and yin-yang immortal sky pills to replenish her life force, Bai Ling was finally pulled back from the brink of death. Second primordial spirit, how is your condition? Sufang spoke to the second primordial spirit. The immortal fiend monster's physical body has been severely injured and has almost lost its vitality. The power of my primordial spirit has also been exhausted to the limit. The second primordial spirit's cold voice was filled with an unprecedented fatigue. Looking at the red-robed old man, Sufang's eyes shot out a sharp and cold light with a murderous aura. Sufang, it was a misunderstanding before. I only attacked because I believed Master Truth's slanderous words. I'm willing to pay compensation. You can state any conditions you have. The red-robed old man, who was heavily injured, no longer had his previous complacency and arrogance. He smiled at Sufang with a fawning expression. Use your life to pay for it. Sufang's cold voice came out as he took out the immortal slaughtering dragon bow. Due to the continuous use of the life-shrinking technique, Sufang's hair had turned white. However, at this moment, he was brimming with murderous intent. Coupled with the horrifying murderous aura from the immortal slaughtering bow, he was like a god of death descending to the mortal world. You're just a sane immortal realm cultivator. I was only injured because of your sneak attack. Do you really think that you could defeat me? The red-robed old man's face darkened. His eyes were filled with ruthlessness and determination. Suddenly, the dragon bird's high-pitched cry, which sounded like the cry of a dragon and the cry of a phoenix, suddenly sounded from that side. A strong and domineering divine might was released, as if a divine sun had suddenly risen to the sky. Under the power of the dragon bird, the scorpion big goblin, which had been ferocious just a moment ago, was now like a big bug. It lay on the ground, trembling, and its eyes were filled with fear. The dragon bird circled in the sky like a king of beasts patrolling its territory. Finally, it landed on the big goblin's head. The scorpion big goblin trembled even more violently, but it did not have the will to resist. In the end, it lay on the ground and did not dare to move, as if it had died. Chi! The dragon bird stretched out its sharp beak and pecked the big goblin's head fiercely. It pecked a big hole in its hard skull, and its brain juice burst out. Then it stretched out its claws and pulled out a bloody spiritual pearl from its head. The dragon bird swallowed the spiritual pearl in one gulp, as if it was enjoying something delicious. Then the dragon bird soared into the sky, flapped its wings, and flipped the huge body of the scorpion big goblin upside down. Then the dragon bird swooped down. When it flew up again, the golden core of the scorpion big goblin was in its claws. This scene stunned the red-robed old man, and his eyes were filled with shock. The scorpion big goblin was also a helper invited by Master Dijon. This demon was a demon emperor, and it was extremely poisonous. Its talent was also very amazing, and its strength was comparable to a celestial prime. At this time, a monster that looked like a dragon and a phoenix had swallowed its golden core and spiritual pearl. It was so scared that it did not even dare to resist. How shocking was this scene? It turns out that the dragon bird, in addition to releasing the sun god's arrow to restrain the evil demons, also has the talent to restrain the big goblin. Su Fong suddenly realized. A voice came from the blood jade in his body. The dragon bird is actually more like a rooster. When the rooster sings, the sun rises in the sky. At the same time, the rooster is also the deadly nemesis of insects. Naturally, it can restrain the big goblin. The red-robed old man lost his last trace of fighting spirit and turned to escape. Su Fong hated this red-robed old man to the core. How could he let him get away so easily? The dragon slayer bow in his hand was quickly drawn into a full moon, and the murderous aura soared into the sky, covering all directions. Whoosh! A dragon shadow arrow roared out, piercing through the void, and hit the red-robed old man's right shoulder, directly shattering one of his arms. His body was seriously injured again. "I'll fight you to the death." The red-robed old man was like an injured beast in a desperate situation. He let out a roar full of anger and incomparable pain, and once again shot out the pearl-shaped primordial spirit magic treasure. Su Fong smiled coldly. "Do you have the qualifications to fight me to the death now?" Suddenly, a voice came from the depths of Su Fong's body. "Su Fong, be careful. This primordial spirit magic treasure is called the Dark Valley Primordial Pearl, and it is more powerful than your demonic blood plate." Primordial spirit magic treasure. Su Fong only raised the corner of his mouth, revealing a disdainful sneer. Not only did he have an extremely powerful second primordial spirit, but he also had the demonic blood plate and mastered the divine secret life shrinking technique that could restrain all primordial spirit forbidden spells. As for magic treasures, Su Fong not only had the Hunyuan Holy Mirror that could even absorb divine weapons, but also the supreme spiritual treasure that could control and suppress magic treasures, the Purple Chi Dharma Spirit. A mere primordial spirit magic treasure, no matter how magical and powerful it was nothing in front of Su Fong. Su Fong was about to activate the Purple Chi Dharma Spirit when from the Purple Chi space in the depths of his body, the faint voice of the Purple Chi Dharma Spirit suddenly came. "Master, this primordial spirit magic treasure. Give it to Az. Whoosh equals N_R. A purple light shot out from Su Fong's body. After a flash of rolling, it turned into a mysterious purple cloud. The B primordial spirit magic treasure had just released a primordial spirit attack when it sensed the aura of the Purple Chi Dharma Spirit's original spirit. It suddenly trembled, as if it had encountered the most terrifying existence. It was worthy of being a primordial spirit magic treasure, and it had reached the level of king grade. The weapon spirit's spirituality was full. Sensing that something was wrong, it immediately flew towards the red-robed old man. Lightning flashed. The purple cloud rolled out, enveloping the bead primordial spirit magic treasure. This primordial spirit magic treasure could not help but tremble, desperately struggling and resisting. After 5 breaths, the original spirit of the Purple Chi Dharma Spirit forcibly sucked out a seven-colored spiritual light from a bead. It was the weapon spirit of the primordial spirit magic treasure. Law exclaimed from the blood jade, "What a powerful and overbearing purple chi dharma spirit! Even a king-grade primordial spirit Tao weapon can be easily swallowed. This ability is simply heaven-defying. Su Fong, don't let it swallow the Dark Valley primordial beads, weapon spirit. This primordial spirit magic treasure is of great use to you." Su Fong immediately issued a command to the original spirit of the purple chi dharma spirit. The original spirit swept up the seven-colored spiritual light and flew back into Su Fong's body, entering the purple chi space. Su Fong took a step forward, grabbed the Dark Valley primordial bead that had lost its weapon spirit, and put it into his body. "My Dark Valley primordial bead." The red-robed old man woke up from his incomparable shock and let out a thunderous roar. "You should worry about your own life first." Su Fong smiled coldly, using the yellow tyrant dragon claw. A claw print quickly and violently struck out. The red-robed old man suffered heavy injuries in succession. After barely dodging Su Fong's fierce attack, Su Fong, who had transformed into a dragon, rushed in front of him. Boom, boom, boom. Su Fong no longer used any magic, but punched the red-robed old man's body again and again. Every punch landed on the old man's flesh, venting all the hatred in his heart. Although the red-robed old man was a celestial venerable expert, he cultivated the primordial spirit Great Tao, so his body was not very strong. At first, he could still constantly dodge and occasionally release the power of his primordial spirit to counterattack. Later on, he could only be crushed, unable to fight back. After being bombarded by Su Fong for hundreds of punches, the red-robed old man's flesh was badly mangled, and many of his meridians and bones were broken. This celestial venerable expert was completely being trampled on by Su Fong in a domineering manner. "Stop! I surrender. I'm willing to be your slave." Seeing that his life was in danger, the red-robed old man finally put down the dignity and arrogance of a celestial venerable expert and begged Su Fong for mercy. "You hurt my family. You don't have the right to be my slave," Su Fong said domineeringly, and his fists fell on the red-robed old man's body like raindrops. Boom! The red-robed old man's body could not withstand the heavy blows and suddenly exploded, turning into pieces that splattered everywhere. Whoosh! A young immortal shining with golden light flew out of the red-robed old man's body and quickly traveled through the void. "It's too late to abandon your body and escape now." The second primordial spirit made a whoosh sound and chased after the red-robed old man's young immortal. This old man cultivated the primordial spirit Great Tao, and his primordial spirit was incomparably powerful. However, without the body's divine aperture, the power of his primordial spirit could not exert much power. But the second primordial spirit lived in the rune mark, and with the heavenly devil disintegration seal and night demon's primordial spirit technique, it could easily suppress the red-robed old man's young immortal primordial spirit. Sister Bai. Su Fong was worried about Bai Ling's injuries and did not care that he had consumed a large amount of life force just now and went straight to Bai Ling's side. Bai Ling's poison had been completely absorbed by Gui, and the medicinal effects of the divine essence pill and Yin Yang immortal sky pill had allowed her to recover some strength, and she finally managed to keep her life. "I'm fine. Brother, you're really powerful. You actually destroyed the body of an immortal venerable expert. Hee, I'm also a demon sovereign now, and I can already activate the extraordinary power of the Chaos Ring. It won't be a problem for me to deal with an immortal venerable. Now, I can finally help you. Next time, when you beat someone up, you must definitely call me." As she spoke, Bai Ling's mind relaxed, and her head tilted to the side, and she fainted. Su Fong felt a heartache and put Bai Ling into the true dragon world. Then, Su Fong activated the ethereal true insight and collected the red-robed old man's body, blood, and chi that were scattered on the ground. The life essence of an immortal venerable expert's body was extraordinarily abundant, and it could be used to help the immortal devil monster recover. This time, the immortal devil monster was seriously injured. Su Fong also put the corpse of the scorpion big goblin into the true dragon world. This demon's body was full of poison, and it would be of great help to the cultivation of Gui and the Lord of Five Poisons. The life essence in the corpse could also be used by Bai Ling, Zhu Huang, and the other big goblins. After all, this was a demon sovereign, and his strength was not inferior to an ordinary immortal venerable expert. After doing all this, the second primordial spirit that was chasing after the red-robed old man's primordial spirit also returned. Seeing the wavering imprint rune that the second primordial spirit resided in, Su Fongda was shocked. Second primordial spirit, are you injured? Original body, I am not injured, but that person's primordial spirit is too strong. After I devoured it, I found it difficult to fuse with it, so I feel a little uncomfortable. Once I slowly fuse with it, the damage to my primordial spirit will definitely be repaired, and the power of my primordial spirit will definitely be transformed again. The second primordial spirit's voice was intermittent. Su Fong was stunned, and then he did not know whether to laugh or cry. It turned out that the second primordial spirit had eaten too much and found it difficult to digest. The second primordial spirit entered the body of the immortal devil monster, and Su Fong put it into the true dragon world. Dragonbird, come here. Su Fong waved at the dragonbird, who was showing off in the sky. The dragonbird turned into a little chick and landed on Su Fong's shoulder. Su Fong sensed that after devouring the spirit pearl and golden core of the scorpion big goblin, the young energy of the dragonbird had become more vast, and the flaming crown on its head had become more fiery red, like a burning flame. Obviously, the spirit pearl and golden core of the insect big goblin were great supplements for the dragonbird. In the future, if he suppressed more insect big goblins, the dragonbird's growth would definitely be accelerated. /= our download address. Mobile reading, bibliographic review. Chapter 1472. The price he had paid this time was extremely heavy. The immortal demon monster's body was seriously injured, and so was its second primordial spirit. Although Bai Ling had successfully passed the monster emperor tribulation, she had almost died and was on the verge of death. As for Su Fong himself, his losses were not small. In the continuous battle with Master Truth and the red-robed old man, Su Fong had used almost all of his most powerful abilities and Tao artifacts. His life force, dragon chi, and true chi had all been severely consumed. Most importantly, Su Fong had just advanced into the fifth Tao, Saint Celestial Realm, and after the successive fierce battles, his cultivation had almost dropped to the fourth Tao realm. It was even to the extent that it might affect the advancement of his cultivation in the future. Such a loss could only be described as heavy. Fortunately, Bai Ling was fine. If she had really met with misfortune, Su Fong would have regretted it for the rest of his life. Fortunately, Su Fong had the means to restore his life force and cultivation, and he could help others recover. Otherwise, with such a great loss, it would be impossible to recover to peak condition without 100,000 years. Su Fong's overall strength would definitely drop, and it would even form a shackle on his future cultivation. Damn that Master Truth and that red-robed celestial sovereign, they really deserve to die. Although Master Truth had been suppressed in the sky burying Dark Coffin, and the red-robed celestial sovereign's soul had been destroyed, Su Fong couldn't help but grit his teeth as he thought of this experience. *buzz*, the rune talisman in his body hummed. As soon as he came out of the star abyss, Su Fong sensed the movement of the rune talisman. Because it was the critical moment of his breakthrough, followed by Master Truth's attack, Bai Ling was in danger, and he didn't have the time to pay attention to it. He took it out and saw that it was the rune talisman left behind by the Green Feather Emperor in Xianin Tian. The rune talisman left behind by the Green Feather Emperor contained two thoughts. One was to report the good news to Su Fong after successfully passing the Monster Emperor tribulation. The other was to inform Su Fong that the Demon World Passage in Demon Dawn had been completely destroyed by him, and the peerless powerhouse from the Demon World and it could no longer be opened. At the same time, the Green Feather Emperor also informed Su Fong that he had gone to the demon world with the expert from the demon world. He asked Su Fong not to worry. The Cyan Feather Emperor's success in transcending the tribulation allowed Su Fong's suspended heart to settle down. However, the Cyan Feather Emperor's departure made Su Fong's heart somewhat melancholy. It seemed like his strength had increased too quickly, giving his big goblin a lot of pressure. This could be considered a side effect of increasing his strength too quickly. Xian Yintian's rune talisman kept asking about Su Fong's situation. He was very worried about Su Fong's safety. There was no movement from the demon race for the time being. Xian Yintian clearly did not know that the passage from the demon realm to this immortal realm had been destroyed by the Green Feather Emperor and the experts of the demon realm. The demon army was without a leader, so how could they be in the mood to attack the immortal Tao? Su Fong activated the rune talisman and replied with a thought, telling Xian Yintian that everything was fine. Only then did Su Fong feel at ease to recover his and his subordinate's strength in the cultivation court. Whoosh, Su Fong transformed into a pool of blood. Then, Gue used the yellow spring blood sea to transform into a pool of blood and fused with Su Fong. Whoosh, whoosh. Su Fong summoned his powerful subordinate, the Big Goblin. The unconscious Bai Ling also appeared in the array formation at the side of the cultivation court. The immortal demon monster and the Lord of Five Poisons were also summoned by Su Fong. Poof! The red-robed elder's shattered body and a small part of demon Sovereign Monsi's body that had not been completely devoured were sucked into the pool of blood by Su Fong. He activated the yellow spring blood sea, which sizzled as it corroded the body. It quickly turned into a pool of blood and fused with the yellow spring blood sea. An immortal venerable's body was incomparably strong, but it was still far from being comparable to a demon sovereign. With Su Fong's yellow spring blood sea's devouring ability, it took half a month to devour the red-robed elder's body and turn it into a pool of blood. Finally, demon Sovereign Monsi's body was completely devoured. The yellow spring blood sea boiled and roiled. Its surface area had transformed to 3,000 feet in size. It was like a vast ocean, giving off a vast and surging feeling. The burning flames of life roared crazily. The Lord of Five Poisons and the big goblins at the side were shocked. The yellow spring blood sea emitted an astonishing aura of life. Just by absorbing this aura from the side, they felt their life force suddenly become active. Then, Su Fong extracted the life essence that he had already refined and injected it into the immortal demon monster and Bai Ling's bodies. He also distributed it to the big goblins for them to recover and cultivate. "Thank you, Master," the Vermilion Emperor shouted excitedly. The other big goblins were also excited and grateful. This was the life essence of an immortal venerable expert. It was easy to imagine how useful it would be for the big goblin's cultivation. Only Su Fong would unreservedly share such precious life essence with his subordinates. If it were placed on other masters, it would already be good enough if he did not take a layer of oil from his subordinates. How could he expect the master to share such precious cultivation resources? After Bai Ling absorbed the life essence, Su Fong used the power of the Yin-Yang world to help her refine it. Her aura gradually became stronger, and she finally woke up. "Brother, I will go into seclusion for a period of time to stabilize my demon sovereign realm." Bai Ling transformed into her human form, waved at Su Fong, and left the cultivation hall. Su Fong felt relieved that Bai Ling was finally fine. The immortal demon monster's body was very strong. Once it was injured, it would be very difficult for it to recover. Even after swallowing a large amount of life essence, it had only recovered 30 to 40% of its injuries. After the Vermilion Emperor and the other big goblins swallowed the life essence, they left Su Fong's cultivation hall and went to their respective cave abodes to cultivate in seclusion. It wouldn't be long before these big goblins collectively transformed. Then, Su Fong took out the scorpion big goblin's corpse and activated the yellow spring blood sea with Gue to corrode and refine the corpse. A portion of the scorpion big goblin's poison was swallowed by Gue, and the other portion was given to the Lord of Five Poisons. The Lord of Five Poisons possessed the five poisons' true body. The more potent the poison, the more beneficial it would be to his cultivation. The scorpion big goblin was a peerless demon sovereign, so it was easy to imagine how beneficial its poison would be to the five poisons' true body. Su Fong injected the scorpion big goblin's life essence into the immortal demon monster's body. At the same time, he also continuously sent the power of the yin-yang world into its body to speed up its recovery. About 3 years later, the boiling yellow spring blood sea had transformed a little more, reaching an area of more than 35,000 feet. As it spiraled and roared, it emitted a shocking power of reincarnation, giving off the feeling that it could swallow the sky. Whoosh! A figure of Su Fong was formed in the middle of the bloody water. He took a step forward and walked out of the bloody sea. After 3 years of cultivation, swallowing a large amount of life essence and pills, Su Fong finally stabilized his nearly fallen cultivation base at the 5 paths of the Saint Immortal Realm. Moreover, he had made some progress. His life force had also recovered to its peak with the help of the dragon-subduing True Body and the Black Lotus True Body. Dead King, send Master Dijun over. It turned out that Su Fong was going to deal with Master Dijun, who was suppressed in the sky-shrouding nether coffin. Whoosh! The sky-bearing nether coffin slid out of the dojo's formation. The Dead King came out of the Tao artifact's inner world and cupped his fists. Master, you've done a great job in suppressing Master Dijun. I'll remember this, Su Fong said in a majestic voice. Thank you, Master. The Dead King was neither happy nor sad. His consciousness was controlled by the second primordial spirit. Other than obeying Su Fong's orders, he had no other thoughts in his mind. Rewards and positions were not important to him. Su Fong peeled off a young immortal and entered the sky-burying nether coffin. In the lifeless inner world of the Tao artifact, Master Dijun was shackled in a formation. He was severely injured by the Xianming lightning seal. After being shackled in the Tao artifact for a few years, his injuries did not recover at all. Instead, they worsened, and he looked like he was on the verge of death. Master Dijun, Su Fong's young immortal shouted coldly. Coldness seeped out of his eyes. Su Fong, I'm now in your hands. You can do whatever you want to me, Master Dijun said in a weak voice. He closed his eyes and looked like a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water. You're only acting like this because you want to bargain with me. Do you think I can't tell? Su Fong said indifferently. After being seen through by Su Fong, Master Dijun snorted coldly and said coldly, What do you want? Su Fong said in a majestic voice, You only have one choice. Submit to me and become my slave. Master Dijun sneered, Submit to you? I'm a Buddhist cultivator. It's hard to find a Buddhist cultivator like me in the entire great world. Do you have the qualifications to make me your slave? Let me go, and you can name any conditions you want. I don't trust your character. It seems you've chosen a dead end. But don't worry, your Buddhist inheritance won't be wasted. I'll find you a successor. Su Fong smiled coldly. Master Dijun was extremely powerful. If he could be subdued, it would naturally be a good thing. However, this person was cunning and insidious. If he did not sincerely submit, Su Fong would not be able to control him in the future. He might even leave behind a fatal problem for himself. The dead emperor was a good example. Since Master Dijun was unwilling to sincerely submit, Su Fong could only devour him to prevent future troubles. The young immortal returned to his body. Monk, get over here, Su Fong shouted coldly. Monk Shangda was enveloped by the power of the true dragon realm's magic treasure. He appeared in the cultivation hall. Master, please be magnanimous. I won't be greedy for power in the mortal world anymore. I won't dream of becoming an emperor. Please be merciful and let me go. Monk Shangda said with tears and snot running down his face. He looked very pitiful. It turned out that when Su Fong had established the square heaven world, many of the experts under him had been rewarded, and they had become powerful figures. Monk Shangda also had thoughts of becoming an emperor in an empire. In the end, Bai Ling ordered Su Fong to lock him up in the true dragon realm to reflect on his mistakes until now. This monk had lived a bitter and boring life for hundreds of years, which almost took his life. He thought that Su Fong had forgotten about him and wanted to imprison him for the rest of his life. Now that he was summoned by Su Fong, he quickly pretended to be pitiful, hoping that Su Fong would be merciful. Monk, let me ask you, do you want to become an unparalleled expert, or do you want to enjoy glory and wealth? Su Fong shouted coldly, causing the monk to tremble. I want to enjoy glory and wealth. Master, will you give it to me? The monk muttered softly. When Su Fong glared at him, he forcefully swallowed the latter half of his sentence. Master, I naturally want to become an unparalleled expert, the monk said with a sacred expression. Su Fong shook his head helplessly. If this guy couldn't comprehend the true meaning of Buddhism's emptiness, he would forever sink into the state of desire and the state of mind, struggling bitterly. Even if he received the inheritance of Master Dijun, it would be difficult for him to reach the state of emptiness. His achievements would be limited. Monk, I'll give you a chance to become an expert. As for where you can go in the end, it all depends on your own cultivation. That's all I have to say. If you can't grasp the opportunity, I have nothing to say, Su Fong said with a majestic voice. The monk nodded repeatedly like a chicken pecking at rice. It was unknown whether he had heard it or not. Su Fong moved his mind. Whoosh, Master Dijun was thrown out of the sky, burying Dark Coffin by the dead king's magic treasure. =_ download address. Mobile reading, bibliographic review. Chapter 1473. The multicolored stone egg floated in front of Su Fong. Suddenly, it sank and sank into the blood water. A faint five-colored light emerged from the inside of the bloody water. The bloody water swirled a few times, but the stone egg did not absorb it as quickly as expected. It would take some time. Since there wasn't going to be a result soon, Su Fong also began to attack. It swallowed all kinds of medicinal pills and resources, and when it entered the bloody water, sparks would burst forth with a hoochie, and waves of boiling flames would appear. Now, the Yellow Spring's Blood Sea's devouring ability was 10 times more powerful than before. It only needed a short while to devour any pill. This caused Su Fong's overall cultivation speed to increase at an astonishing rate. Buzz! Su Fong, who was sitting cross-legged in the pool of blood, had been cultivating for a while. Suddenly, there was movement in his body. He was pleasantly surprised as he sucked the underworld blood sea into his body. Even a five-colored stone egg was sucked into the yin-yang Dao wheel as he continued to fuse. He flew out of the crucible transformation realm and arrived at the Barren Mountains Array Formation. Looking at the yin-yang Dao wheel, most of the 21st meridian that was being attacked was burning with yang flames. The flames were extremely shocking, causing the yang energy in all the yang meridians to start attacking this meridian. Even the yin-yang world power of the world fragment surged into this meridian. There were no less than 1,000 impacts. Ha! His meridians shook violently, as if they wanted to rush out of his body. Then, a burst of yang qi exploded in his xianguang. His entire vein changed from the color of flesh and blood to that of jade in an instant. The gray-white yang qi crazily rushed into his meridians. The 21st yang meridian was successfully formed. He channeled all of his jin qi into the yang meridian. Furthermore, the 21 yang meridians also began to approach the yin-yang Dao wheel. At the end of the 20 yang meridians, the two meridians were connected and became a part of the yin-yang Dao wheel. At this moment, Zhang Xian felt as if he had lost a third of the yang energy in his body. The birth of a new yang meridian had consumed a significant amount of yang energy. It would probably take a long time for it to reach its peak state. However, with the birth of an additional yang meridian, the yang energy in his body was raised to another level, becoming even more profound and unfathomable. Every drop of yang energy was the essence of the body. At the same time, the birth of the 21st yang meridian also increased his cultivation speed, especially when he used the 9 yang 9 transformations. When When the time comes, I'll take the opportunity to break through to the peak of the 5 Tao realm and step into the 6 Tao realm. Here are my elixirs, and I can continue to cultivate the yellow spring blood sea while I'm in the crucible transformation realm. Once the yang vein calmed down, he once again returned to the crucible transformation realm. With Tung Ba guarding the crucible transformation realm, he did not have to worry about it. His body quickly transformed into the yellow springs blood sea state, and a Su Fong body condensed in the center. While cultivating the yellow springs blood sea, he kept devouring pills. At the same time, a thought shot out from his eyes. A man in black appeared beside Su Fong. This sovereign, so it was his second primordial spirit. Su Fong said bluntly, "This body of yours isn't of much use, and you're not a very powerful expert. I just happen to need to break through a realm. Give me this body of yours. Next time, you can just take over a new body." The second clone was domineering. It was Su Fong who dominated the 5 great small worlds in the past. The body doesn't have much impact on my cultivation. Instead, when you break through to the next realm and strengthen your primordial spirit, I'll become more powerful. Moreover, I also need to devour some life energy and primordial spirit. This body is yours, but next time, you have to find me a new body as soon as possible. Not only do you and I share the same primordial spirit, but I'm different from you. You only need to cultivate your primordial spirit, but my primordial spirit has the amazing ability of Night Charm after devouring the primordial spirit rune talisman of Night Charm. Not only can it become stronger by devouring primordial spirits, it can also devour life essence. I know you're slowly getting some of Night Charm's abilities. Don't be too anxious. Slowly master Night Charm's abilities. When we return to the Star Palace, I'll find you a body. After agreeing, whoosh, a black ray of light flew out from the second primordial spirit's mind. It was the second primordial spirit. When the primordial spirit flew out, the physical body of the man in black, whose primordial spirit had been devoured and possessed by Su Fong, suddenly turned cold. Although it was still breathing, it had lost its mind and was just a living dead. No need to be courteous. He waved his hand and grabbed a golden elixir from the lower abdomen of the man in black. Then he extracted most of his vital energy, and in the end, he threw the man in black directly into the underworld blood sea. This was the first time Su Fong wanted to use the underworld blood sea to devour Cultivator. The man in black fell into the blood water and was drowned in it from the beginning. There were shocking blood-red flames and wisps of smoke. Then, the blood water devoured his skin with a sizzling sound. His skin fell off layer by layer, revealing his flesh and blood. His flesh and blood began to melt like ice in the blood water. Soon, less than 2/3 of his physical body was left, and it was still being devoured at a shocking speed. The refining speed was so fast that Su Fong found it hard to believe that this was the ability of the underworld blood sea. Of course, it was inseparable from the blood transformation true body, the Black Lotus true body, the great perfection stage ability, and the power of yin and yang. The underworld blood sea alone could not have such a shocking speed. After many cultivation sessions, the underworld blood sea already had Su Fong's various abilities. The combination of the two great abilities led to such an abnormal devouring speed. It could also be said that the Underworld Devil Emperor's #1 cultivation technique had been improved imperceptibly after meeting Su Fong. Its ability had become even more abnormal. And this was only the initial state. When Su Fong completely mastered the Underworld Blood Sea, even he himself could not predict the extent of the devouring. Su Fong deliberately calculated the time to devour a strong cultivator. It took about 6 days. After devouring, his physical strength was obviously improving. The blood water surged more violently, and his vital energy increased a lot. He was about to reach the peak of the 5th Tao Heaven Immortal Realm. Only then did he devour the golden core in his hand and directly put it into the yin-yang Tao wheel. After the golden core was shattered, all the power was devoured and disappeared in the yin-yang Tao wheel. The blood water was increasing his vital energy and vital energy. Su Fong in the middle of the blood water was also increasing his vital energy. With two approaches at the same time, how could this cultivation not be terrifying? Of course, only by mastering the underworld blood sea could one have such an amazing cultivation method. About 3 years later, the underworld blood sea was sucked into Su Fong's body and flew out of the crucible transformation. When the crucible transformation disappeared in his palm, under the guard of Tung Ba, his body burst out layers of tribulation aura. The tribulation aura came out and suddenly turned into a blazing tribulation fire in a terrifying state. It continued to burn and soon covered an area of more than 100 feet. The impurities in the placenta gushed out, and the impact shook Su Fong's body to the point that it made crackling sounds. All this was not painful. All he could do was wait. When he could control the power of promotion, he began to devour the elixir and let the elixir's power assist him. Soon, the breakthrough was over and there were 6 down marks all over his body. Upon closer inspection, the golden core origin, meridians, flesh membrane, and divine aperture all had 6 down marks. This meant that Su Fong had stepped into the 6 paths, celestial, immortal realm. 6 paths, celestial, immortal realm. At this moment, he released his perfect sensing ability that could cover 25 miles. This was the edge of the wasteland, but his sensing ability was already so amazing. I haven't used my blood transformation true body for a long time. Let's see how powerful it is. Chi. Suddenly, while his vital energy was still weak, he formed a seal. His skin turned from its natural state to blood red, and many blood patterns formed on his face and skin. Puff, puff. Blood bones grew out from his left and right shoulders. The blood bones turned into blood horns and began to grow forward. This process was 100 times more painful than the breakthrough. He could feel his bones being pulled out by the blood horns. All his strength was concentrated on the blood horns. Soon, Su Fong's entire body was filled with evil qi. There was devil qi, but most of it was evil qi. Ruthlessness and bloodthirstiness intertwined with each other. He had turned into a monster with a bloody horn on his palm. His eyes were blood red, and his body was twice as strong as before. This was the state of the blood transformation true body. He opened his arms, and his body was filled with fierce divine power, from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet, especially the blood horns on his chest. Strong, perfect. When I use my blood transformation true body, I feel like I've surpassed the celestial immortal realm and reached the Xian immortal realm. In this state, I'm filled with the smell of battle and killing. It's as if there's someone deep inside me, constantly reminding me to kill. Your great circle ability is already very shocking. Even in ancient times, it would be outstanding. However, you still need to work hard. The ancient people of the past, for example, the giant race, were ordinary people. However, when they used their great circle ability, they would become 10 times or even 100 times larger. They would become giants as shocking as monsters. Law suddenly spoke. He probably sensed that the state of the blood transformation true body was extraordinary. But your nightmare blood transformation true body is a little threatening. In addition, you'd better not use it too often. If you lose control of your will in battle, you'll fall into the devil path. A human's body can become 100 times bigger. The power of the perfect had exceeded Su Fong's imagination. Soon, the blood transformation true body disappeared. When Su Fong returned to normal, he activated the Black Lotus true body. It had been a long time since he activated the true bodies. Chi. Who would have thought that by activating the Black Lotus true body, numerous blood-colored lotus threads would emerge from his palm. They were extremely sharp and were probably at least as tough as a low-grade Dao artifact, or even stronger. My entire body is covered with black lotus blood strands, Yang Qi said. Now that they have covered my entire body, I can slowly circulate my true energy and blood. However, the snow lotus blood strands are still too thin. Once they become 100 times thicker, I'll be able to circulate my true energy normally. Then he started to cultivate the great giant diamond body and other skills. With the help of medicinal pellets, his strength continued to enter the normal state of the Six Paths realm. A few years later, constellation of 9 heavens, a figure flew out of the barrier. It was Su Fong. Passing through the familiar Huangfu dojo, Shi Yin knew that Huangfu Fei was still in the Huangze astral world, but he didn't care. Soon, he passed through the 9 dojos and returned to the precious tool's secret realm. After entering the palace, everything was still the same. He just raised the height of the formation and rested for a few days. Immortal Long Valley sent him a message. It was mainly about Dai Yi. Once he returned, he would let the higher-ups know that Dai Yi was trapped in the extraterritorial space-time. The higher-ups of Star Palace would pass down the order and ask the experts to stop looking for Dai Yi. Instead, they would prepare for the training that the 4 sects were going to hold in Huangze Astral. Knowing all of this, Su Fong continued to absorb the great pregnant purple qi and fuse with the purple qi Dharma spirit, increasing his luck once again. Qi, qi, qi. He cheerfully greeted Su Fong, and the two of them had a congenial chat. In the celestial pool peak, most of the cultivators had dealt with refining tools their entire lives, and they rarely participated in the open and covert struggles of the sect. Qi, 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 qi. Chapter 1474. When he arrived at the crafting cave and passed through the array, the Xianguang released an aura that attracted the attention of many disciples who were crafting with 3 cauldrons. Huangfu, Shaoying, most of the disciples in the cave were at the heavenly immortal realm and mystic immortal realm. Su Fong's arrival was like a stone thrown into a calm lake. There were a few core disciples floating above the cauldrons. One of them was Huangfu Ju from Huangfu Training Hall. When he saw Su Fong, his brows furrowed in anger and surprise. The other core disciples also stared at Su Fong indifferently. It seemed that he was still not welcomed by these people here. Su Fong walked straight to the cauldrons with his chest held high under everyone's different gazes. The token showed that he was different from every disciple here. Su Fong, who had just entered the treasure mystic realm, suddenly became a person that everyone paid attention to. He came to the top of the largest cauldron and looked at the core disciples casually. Huangfu Ju, what are you looking at? What's there to be unhappy about? Are you still thinking about that time? If you're really unhappy, I can fight with you at any time. Senior brothers, let's talk again when we have time. Who knew that Huangfu Ju and a few of his trusted subordinates knew when to advance and retreat? They obediently left the array cave. Senior brother, why don't you teach him a lesson? You're a core disciple. You have a good relationship with those senior brothers. There's still plenty of time in the future. Let him jump? Jump? Well, anyway, his relationship with Mu Shua is very bad. I don't need to do anything. Naturally, someone will take care of him. Many people want to teach this kind of crazy person a lesson. Huangfu Ju and his trusted subordinates left the array and walked out of the cave. They chattered outside unwillingly. When he heard that, he also thought that Huangfu Ju suddenly made things difficult for him. Su Fong could guess that it was related to some people in Huangfu Training Hall. As soon as Huangfu Ju left, the other core disciples were also indifferent to Su Fong, giving Su Fong a good environment for refining tools. He took out some raw materials and keystones that he had prepared beforehand and tossed them into the largest cauldron. It looked like he was forging a weapon, but in truth, he had already taken advantage of the flames to come out of the cauldron and absorb the primordial violet qi within. The great pregnant violet qi couldn't be seen. Su Fong sat cross-legged at the side. Because of the artifact forging, the artifact cauldron spewed out extremely powerful flames. Ordinary heavenly immortal disciples would either lose a layer of skin or be heavily injured if they were to touch it. The flame itself carried some strange sparks or halos. In fact, these different colored flames contained the great pregnant purple qi. Together with the flame ejection, they were miraculously absorbed by Su Fong's right arm. Comfortable. A familiar scent began to surge in his right arm. The purple qi Dharma spirit, which had been dormant for a long time, suddenly came to life. It flowed continuously from his 5 fingers to his shoulder. It felt like his entire right arm was a stream of purple light. The power of the purple qi flowed back and forth. Moreover, the great pregnant violet qi that permeated the surroundings of the cauldron also gathered together with the flames of the 3 artifact cauldrons. All of it was devoured by Su Fong. He could clearly feel the purple qi dharma spirit rushing out of his arm and into his body. Unfortunately, the great pregnant violet qi wasn't enough. He still needed to absorb more. At the same time, he also placed the Xianhuang 6 Paths Pagoda, the Flaming Cloud Spiritual Gourd, and the Starry Daylight Sword into the artifact cauldrons to upgrade their quality. These mid-grade Dao tools weren't as attractive as high-grade Dao tools. During this process, some disciples came over to chat with Su Fong. Only then did they realize that Su Fong wasn't hard to get along with. About a year later, the great pregnant violet qi in the largest artifact cauldron in the center was completely absorbed by Su Fong, who had reached the heavenly, immortal 6 Paths realm. It was a pity that the purple qi dharma spirit still merged with his right arm. Then, he secretly absorbed the purple qi dharma spirits of the 2 artifact cauldrons beside him. When he was nominated as a special disciple, he absorbed all the great pregnant violet qi from the 3 artifact cauldrons in the cauldron. It seemed like there wouldn't be any great pregnant violet qi left in this cauldron. Using the Star Palace's artifact cauldrons to refine the 3 treasures is too comfortable. I don't have to worry about anything. I just have to take out some special materials. The Xianhuang 6 Paths Pagoda, the Flaming Cloud Spiritual Gourd, and the Starry Daylight Sword are all constantly improving. Time flew by just like that. His main focus was on cultivation and the improvement of the 3 treasures. As for refining, he didn't put much effort into it. Refining a low-grade Dao tool wasn't difficult for him at all. About 5 years later, there was a sudden hubbub in the cauldron. It turned out that Su Fong had successfully refined a low-grade flying sword. Many people were envious of him. No matter how talented these disciples were, they could only refine a low-grade Dao tool every few hundred years. But Su Fong had refined 2 low-grade Dao tools in less than 100 years. That was the difference. After refining the flying sword, Su Fong flew out of the cauldron and flew to the deepest mountain in the treasure artifact Mystery Land. That was where the authority of the treasure artifact Mystery Land gathered. As soon as he arrived at the hall, he saw some familiar faces. He didn't know if it was a coincidence or a good timing, but there were many higher-ups gathered in the hall. There was even the elder of the treasure artifact Mystery Land, Master Luan. After asking around, he found out that in 10 years, the Star Palace would join forces with the other 3 forces to hold a joint training in the Huangze Astral. There would be 100,000 disciples in the Star Palace. The treasure artifact Mystery Land had to prepare a large number of magic treasures in such a short period of time. Almost all of them were low-grade to middle-grade Dao tools. There were also some upper-grade Dao tools and top-grade ones. When Su Fong presented the tool in front of everyone, the higher-ups praised him. In such a short period of time, he had refined another Dao tool. Master Luan had witnessed Su Fong's growth step by step since the 10,000-year competition. Although they didn't interact much, he had always been aware of his growth. With that, Su Fong freed up another 100 years. After 100 years, he would hand over the Dao tool that he had refined. For the next 100 years, he could control it himself. Coincidentally, Wang Yuzhen had sent him a lot of thoughts over the years. As such, Su Fong also needed to collect some alchemy resources. After contacting the other party, Wang Yuzhen happened to be in the Great Ancient Dojo and told him to go there directly. Great Ancient Dojo? He thought he was going to the Bodhi spiritual world. After leaving the treasure artifact Mystery Land, he flew for a while in the ruined dojo and arrived at a shocking realm. Great Ancient Dojo. This was one of the most important dojos in the constellation of 9 heavens. It was the place where many geniuses rose. Activating the token, as a core disciple and a nominated special disciple, Su Fong wasn't shackled by the array and easily stepped into the array. Just follow the aura. The Great Ancient Dojo is very big. The center is the cultivation enchantment, and the outer area is the disciple's cave. The voice of Wang Yuzhen's primordial spirit came directly from the depths of the ruined dojo. It was his first time coming to the great ancient dojo, so he naturally wanted to see how extraordinary it was. When his perfect sensing power covered the area, he didn't expect the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to be 3 times more abundant than the treasure artifact Mystery Land. The inside of the dojo was no longer a ruin, but a pagoda made of arrays and rocks. These pagodas were probably cultivation dojos with unlimited space inside. There were some disciples' cave residences nearby. He could sense and see that they were cultivating. Baby Huangfu was also in the great ancient Mystery Land. But thinking of Huangfu Fei and the Huangfu Dojo, Su Fong didn't have the heart to find him. After passing through a large number of cave residences, he arrived at a forest. The forest was covered by 3 layers of arrays. When Su Fong arrived, a female servant flew out and politely led him into the forest. After passing through the forest array, he suddenly found some injured core disciples. They were all in the mystic immortal realm and were waiting outside a big hall. After asking the female servant, he knew that these people had returned from the desolate lake astral world after being injured. They were buying some healing spiritual items from Wang Yuzhen. When these disciples saw that Su Fong was led into the hall by the female servant, they were very curious. They were all core disciples and could only wait outside. But why was Su Fong, a heavenly immortal realm disciple, receiving special treatment? There was another array before entering the hall. After passing through the array, there was a unique garden in front of him. His sensing power made him unable to appreciate the scenery. He didn't expect to sense 2 familiar auras in this garden, as well as a few very powerful existences in the mystic immortal realm. He glanced over and saw that Wang Yuzhen was sitting in a pavilion in the depths of the garden. In front of her was Li Qianqi, and Li Qianqi had brought a few people with him. The female servant asked Su Fong to wait on the side. Perhaps Wang Yuzhen also knew that if Su Fong offended Mu Shuo and Nangong Xiu, he would definitely offend Li Qianqi. It was better to avoid him. After half a day, Li Qianqi and a few people broke through the array and left. Hearing the conversation, it turned out that some experts around Li Qianqi were also in urgent need of some spiritual items, so they asked Wang Yuzhen to get them back as soon as possible. He didn't expect that Wang Yuzhen, a core disciple, had such a deep relationship with special disciples. As Su Fong came to the pavilion, Wang Yuzhen said without hesitation, "I didn't expect you to be so good at refining artifacts. Just now, someone from the treasure artifact Mystic Realm said that you made a low-grade Taoist artifact in a few decades. You are much faster than Qin Kuei." Back then, he also made his first Taoist artifact in 1,000 years. Then, it took him hundreds of years to make Taoist artifacts one after another. Su Fong bowed. "Senior sister, you are amazing. I can't hide anything from you. I don't want to waste time with you. I wanted you to come and help me appraise treasures, but you are not here. So, I asked other senior brothers, why? I think your whereabouts are very mysterious. Everyone in the sect either knows that you are in the treasure artifact Mystic Realm or that you have left the dojo. Then, you disappeared. You are so mysterious. You're similar to those special disciples." Junior brother also went out to gain experience and look for all kinds of refining materials. In more than 10 years, there will be a public event between our sect and the Clear Sky, Thousand Scrolls Door, Huiyin Shinrikyo, and Brahma Meditation Sect. Do you want to participate? If not, you can stay here and help me appraise treasures during the event. I'm going to participate in the event. The event of the 4 major sects? Well, of course I'm going. I heard that there are many treasures in the Huang Zhe astral world, and there are also ancient magic treasures. Of course, I want to try my luck. I am in the heaven immortal realm, so I don't dare to go alone. But this time, the 4 major sects are holding an event together. There are so many experts there. I am not afraid of danger. Since you're going, then you can come and help me after the event. Senior sister, trust me. Just give me the treasures now. I will slowly appraise the treasures when I am not cultivating. You are so considerate. I will not stand on ceremony." Wang Yuzhen was in a good mood. She was really a woman who should not be offended. After giving Su Fong several storage rings, her eyes flickered. This joint event of the four major sects seems to be safe, but it is dangerous. My purpose is not for the legendary dojo of the Yellow Spring Devil Emperor, but to find many special spiritual items. If you don't have other plans, it is best to come with me in the Huang Zhe astral world. We could take care of each other. Otherwise, with your current realm, I am afraid there will be nothing left of you if you go to the wasteland. Senior sister, thank you for your kindness. It seemed that Wang Yuzhen really cared about him. Chapter 1475. What a powerful resurrected expert. Dugu Mujian was also dumbfounded by the strength displayed by the undead king. Dugu Mujian, quickly tell me what happened in Square Heaven Great World. Su Fong couldn't wait to ask. Square Heaven Great World is fine for now, but the devil venerables of the devil race are constantly breaking through the world barriers of the other immortal worlds. The army of the devil race invaded the immortal worlds and started a bloody massacre. When I left, more than a dozen immortal worlds had already turned into wastelands. Dugu Mujian's words made Su Fong shocked and surprised. Soon after, flames of fury burned in his eyes. Dugu Mujian immediately unleashed his divine might and condensed the scene of Square Heaven Great World and the other immortal worlds into a condensed image. On one side of the immortal world at the edge of the Star River, an army of tens of millions of devil race had gathered in the sky above the world barrier. There were two peerless experts of the devil race. Their strength had surpassed Devil Venerable Manshur, reaching the peak of the initial stage of the immortal venerable realm. They were on the same level as Sage Dijun. One of the devil venerables had fused with the body of an immortal Tao cultivator. He looked like an ordinary old man with a faint aura. The other devil venerable was twice as tall as an ordinary person. Unlike the other devil race, this devil venerable's bones were strangely sharp. His skin was pale, and his body was emitting a gloomy aura. His eyes were burning with strange white flames. This devil venerable was the same as the blood devil. He belonged to a special race of the devil race called the Bone Devil. The other devil race liked to devour the blood essence of immortal Tao cultivators and Big Goblin. However, the Bone Devil loved to devour the bone marrow of cultivators and Big Goblin. The Bone Devil raised his hand and shot out a long white river. It wasn't a river, but a river of bones formed from countless immortal Tao cultivators and Big Goblin skulls. Asterisk boom. Asterisk millions of skulls rushed towards the world barrier like a flood. Then they crazily gnawed and tore at the barrier, making bone-chilling noises. The incomparably sturdy world barrier was able to stop a peerless, immortal venerable like immortal elder Frozen Dream. However, under the frenzied gnawing of so many evil skulls, it actually started to loosen. This lasted for more than 3 months. First, it was the world barrier that connected the Square Heaven Great World and more than 100 immortal realms. Then, the boundary barrier above the immortal realm was gnawed open by the ant-like skulls. At this moment, the Bone Devil took out a bone saber that was over 1,000 feet long and was burning with white cold flames. He slashed the saber down on the hole in the world barrier. Boom! The barrier between the immortal realm and the world barrier was torn open, and the fiend army poured into the immortal realm like a tide. Bloody massacres were taking place in every corner of the immortal realm. Cultivators, Big Goblin, and countless civilians were devoured. Even their essence spirits were not spared. They were tortured by the fiend race's flames and eventually devoured. Many cultivators and Big Goblin were captured alive by the devil race, but they couldn't devour so many in a short period of time. They were shackled by the devil race and stored as food. As for the female cultivators, they were ravaged by the devil race and used as breeding tools. There were also countless infants who were refined into pills. The fetus that was still in its mother's womb was sliced open by the devilish beings and eaten as if it were a snack amid a series of sinister laughter. Blood pools were built in the immortal realm. Countless civilians and creatures were stripped of their blood and used as nutrients for the fiend race's cultivation. The fiend formation created by the devil race devoured all life and turned the lord of the immortal realm's territory into a wasteland. The catastrophe had only just begun. Then, The immortal realm's boundary barrier was breached and fell into the hands of the fiend race. The previous scene repeated itself over and over again. Seeing this scene, Su Fang's eyes oozed blood. He clenched his fists so hard that his fingernails pierced into the flesh of his palms. He was dripping with blood, but he didn't feel it. Bai Ling's eyes burned with the flames of chaos. With a furious roar, he flew into the midst of the fiend lord's world of death and tore them to pieces with his claws. "Why didn't you send me a message through rune talisman?" Su Fang asked in a deep voice. Dugu Mujian smiled bitterly and said, "The devil race cut off the connection between Square Heaven Great World and the other immortal realms with their supreme fiend divine ability. The primordial spirit intent sent through rune talisman was like a stone sinking into the sea. Therefore, I couldn't get in touch with you." He continued, "I had no choice but to leave Square Heaven Great World to find you. In the end, I was chased by the devil race experts. If I didn't meet you by chance, I would have died today." Su Fang said decisively, "Let's go back to Square Heaven Great World." Duga Mujian suddenly said, "Wait, what's wrong? Senior Xian Intian sent me to kill my way out of the encirclement and find you. He didn't ask for your help. Instead, he asked you to leave this immortal realm and avoid the devil race." Su Fang's face sank. "Why?" "Countless devil race experts came from the devil realm this time. Among them, there are 2 devil sovereigns. That bone devil is much stronger than devil Sovereignty. He has powerful divine abilities and devil artifacts. There's another devil sovereign. Although I haven't seen him make a move, his strength is also unfathomable. There are 2 such powerful devil experts. If you rush back now, you'll just be throwing your life away. Therefore, Senior Xian Intian repeatedly urged me to find you and ask you to leave immediately." Su Fang, Senior Xian Intian's decision is right. Your talent is heaven-defying. You just lack the time to grow. After 1,000,000 years, or even hundreds of thousands of years, you'll definitely become a peak expert of this great world. Right now, you can only avoid the devil race and preserve the last trace of vitality for this immortal realm. Don't be impulsive. Duga Mujian naturally knew that with Su Fang's personality, he wouldn't ignore it. He could only persuade him bitterly. "In Square Heaven Great World, there's my father, my clansmen, my friends, and my subordinates. Even without them, the immortal Tao is being slaughtered by the devil race. How can I abandon them? I'm also an immortal Tao cultivator. The ones being slaughtered by the devil race are my clansmen. I'm the overlord of this immortal realm. If I don't step forward when the immortal Tao is in trouble, who else can I do?" Su Fang's clanging voice was filled with incomparable determination, and a surge of fearless heroism surged into the sky. Devil race. 2 devil race experts. In my eyes, Su Fang, they're just a bunch of clay chickens and pottery dogs. I'll stick their heads in the Milky Way and tell all the devil race that I'll kill anyone who dares to invade this immortal realm. Su Fang's voice was filled with disdain and arrogance. "Let's go." Su Fang put the dead king back into his body and summoned Bai Ling back. Bai Ling pushed his speed to the limit and headed straight for Square Heaven Great World. Square Heaven Great World. Looking at the immortal realm that had turned into a wasteland, Bone Devil couldn't help but laugh complacently. "Manin, this immortal realm is about to fall into my hands. What else do you have to say?" Another devil lord who had transformed into an old man said coldly, "Bone River, the devil race's upper echelons sent you and me to this immortal realm to safely bring the ancestral devil and the devil race army out of this immortal realm. Yet, you wantonly started a massacre and violated the orders of the upper echelons. When we return to the devil world, you'll be punished for not obeying the orders. I've annexed this immortal realm and expanded the devil race's territory. The upper echelons will only reward me. Why would they punish me?" The Bone Devil, named Bone River, was full of pride. "Your man clan might be one of the 12 great clans of the devil race, but you've already declined to this extent. First, Devil Lord Munishi fell, and the devil race army was trapped in Demon Dawn Fortress. Even the ancestral devil, Devil Lord Barbarian God, fell into the hands of the immortal Tao cultivators. And now you, Devil Lord Manishi, are scared out of your wits. You don't even dare to attack the immortal Tao cultivators. I feel ashamed for you. It won't be long before the Man clan is removed from the 12 great clans. Devil light flashed in Devil Lord Manishi's eyes. He sneered. The upper echelons of the devil race have already forced the heavens mandate Bright Azure sect to give up the 10 directions immortal realm to the devil race. This desolate immortal realm has already lost its value. Yet, you ignore the orders of the upper echelons and wantonly slaughtered. The human, Su Fong, isn't here. When he returns, let's see how you'll deal with his monstrous anger. A mere saint immortal cultivator can scare you to this extent? I came to this immortal realm from the devil world to have a battle with him. I want to see what kind of ability he has to be able to kill Manshur and stop the advance of my devil race army. Devil Lord Bone River sneered disdainfully. He looked at the great world below him. In the next moment, Devil Lord Bone River revealed a sharp killing intent. I don't know where Su Fong is hiding. I'll destroy his great world and force him out. Boom! Devil Lord Bone River waved his hand and shot out a sinister river of skulls. It carried a monstrous, evil aura as it surged down towards the boundary above the square heaven great world. It was like a heavenly river descending from the 9 heavens. It was spectacular and bizarre. Crack! Crack! These skulls were the skulls of the immortal Tao cultivators and big goblins that Devil Lord Bone River had meticulously refined. Not only were they tough and indestructible, but their gnawing ability was also astonishing. Under the frenzied gnawing of the skulls, the world barrier above the square heaven great world's energy was rapidly depleted. The array formation also shattered layer by layer. Although the world barrier had the ability to automatically recover, it couldn't keep up with the speed of the skull's gnawing. Inside the square heaven great world, all the cultivators, big goblin, and commoners were looking up at the sky, seeing the densely packed skulls and hearing the terrifying sound of bones being gnawed. It was as if the god of death had descended. All of them fell into the abyss of despair. In the air, Xian Tian led the tens of millions of cultivators and big goblin from the square heaven great world to form an array formation. Su Fong's immortal emperor experts, such as Old Immortal Penghua and the others, Dai Yong, Mao Chong, the Ghost Owl's 5 freaks, the junior commanders, the elite army, tens of millions of origin source cultivators, and all the immortals and big goblin from the square heaven great world who could fly were all present. The outcome of this battle was already decided. In the face of 2 demon venerables from the demon race, no matter how many people the square heaven great world had, no matter how strong they would only end up being slaughtered. In the face of death, everyone was terrified. However, no one retreated. Although their bodies were trembling, their eyes were filled with determination. Xian Yintian's majestic voice rang in the ears of everyone and the big goblin. Before you die in battle, remember to self-destruct. You would rather die than be devoured by the demon race. Yes, the determination on the faces of everyone and the big goblin became even stronger. Human Emperor World. In the main hall, Su Yaodian, Li Ziqing, Su Jinhua, and thousands of other powerhouses, as well as Lan Haicheng, Xiao Meier, Su Erkson, and the other women were also present. After so many years, the powerhouses of the 5 small worlds had already ascended to become immortals. However, compared to the other experts under Su Fong, their strength was insignificant. They were only virtual immortals. Everyone, since Su Fong is not here, I will make the decision for him. 5 small worlds, fight! Fight, fight, fight! Everyone roared in unison. Although they were weak, they were all from Su Fong's hometown. They were Su Fong's family, friends, and subordinates. They all had an unyielding heart. More than a month later, under the crazy biting of countless skulls, the defensive ability of the world barrier was weakened to the extreme. It was not far from collapse. =_ our download address. Mobile reading, bibliographic review.